Howdy, folks. I'm Mark, host of Quick Play, and this is a Big Discourse, which is a quarterly-ish gathering to talk about a big game or topic, or however long we want to talk about it. And so today, I am joined by, and we will go around the metaphorical table, and I'll call you out, but so that listeners can lock in your voice. When I see your name, we're going to go ahead and do what are you playing now. So give your name and your game, and say hey. So let's start out with Nate McKeever is right up here with of the backlog breakdown. Nate, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm stoked to be here, man. This is when you told me you were going to be broaching like the 2+ hour territory, I was stoked. I'm like, yes, count me in. As far as what I'm playing lately, it's been Elden Ring.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts. But yeah, that's what I've been playing lately. And unfortunately for your audience and your listeners and my fellow participants, I'm here. And
We're glad you're here.
Chaos comes in my wake. So
well, no worries. Thanks for being here, Nate. Next down on my Zoom screen is Jordan Lightheart. Welcome back, Jordan.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to be here. I am playing this month. I'm playing Manor Lords, the new indie hit that came out, kind of like a medieval simulation. Maybe a little bit of Total War thrown in there too. It's pretty good.
Nice.
Would recommend.
Good to know. Maybe check it out. Next up is Billy Cox.
I am playing 2 fan-made games a lot lately. PokeRouge and Digimon Card Game Online.
Very nice. Billy, thanks for being here. Next we have Elizabeth Coates Bowen.
Hi. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I am playing Lego Fortnite.
Nice.
They added some Star Wars quests and fixed what I thought were some pretty glaring issues that were there when it came out a few months ago. Mm-hmm. So it's been a lot more fun recently.
Nice. Good to know. I need to hop back into that. And finally, we have Kurt Weisheidt. Kurt, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, glad to be back. I am, I might have said this last time I was on, but I'm playing Slay the Spire still.
Nice.
Try to grind
maybe like a year ago, yeah.
It's a great game.
I'm still playing it. So, yeah, excited about Slay the Spire too.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, thank you for being here, Kurt. Landry Smith will also be joining us in just a bit, so we'll have him shout himself out once he's back in. Also, I'm Mark. I said that I am currently playing, just started Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It's pretty cool so far. We'll see how it goes. Well, thank you all for joining me for this not so short talk about video games. Let's get right into it. And so you're all going to have to bear with me because this is going to be a bit of a doozy because I'm excited to say that we've embarked on my greatest, dumbest idea yet. So as the committee assembled here today, we are here to determine the 12 games to rule them all. You might be wondering, what are you talking about? I also have no idea. But I'm choosing to take it as if there were a governing body of 12 video games to rule all other video games, what games would be on that governing body? But should that be simply the objectively 12 best video games or the 12 most influential games? Or do you push for quintessential game of its genre? Or do you lean more towards a game that incorporates a bunch of them? You go for past or present or kind of the ultimate ends. All of that is up to our lovely quorum here. And so we have all already come prepared with our own list of 12 games. And we'll each take turns pitching and making a case for our own picks for the full communal list. And we'll vote on those. So every time we go through a game, every vote for is a +1, every vote against is a -1, and you can abstain, which is a net 0. And that final sum determines its place on the list. So 5 votes for and 2 votes against puts it at a +3. But before we vote, we got to talk about it first because other participants will have the opportunity to argue against or support for that pick, plus a final argument from the original picker. So as we go around, we'll all get at least 2 picks, and being that we'll have 7 total people, not every pick will get in, but we'll continue going around until we at least have 12 games that have a simple majority in that they're at least above 0. And we'll have a total equal amount of picks. So if we go over 12, the lower vote total picks will start to drop off. If there are ever any ties between games, the priority will go towards the one that was pitched earlier. So there may be a little bit of an advantage to picking the games you really want on there first. And then once we have fill in our communal 12, all of our individual lists will get aggregated, and the two most common games that we have already picked on our own will get added in appropriately. And that will end merely session 1 of 3, but the next 2 sessions are much quicker. So session 2, we'll each get to pitch and vote on one counter offer to a game that's already on the board, which as in we're replacing it with a similar game or one in the same series. And then session 3 is we each go around and we can suggest an edit to the final list. So whether that's taking a revote on a game or overturning a counter offer, or even pitching a glaring omission. But we'll get there when we get there. And at the end of this all, the final list of the 12 games to rule them all will be enshrined for all time until the next time. And plus, whoever's personal list most closely matches the final committee decided list will be crowned Gamer of the Year. So, any questions so far? We'll shout out real quick. Landry Smith has just joined us. I don't know if he has connected to audio yet, so we'll give him just a brief moment to get settled in. He'll introduce himself. But before we get going, any questions so far?
Do we get a belt if we win? If we win Gamer of the Year, like a championship belt?
I could print one out for you, maybe.
I demand a championship cummerbund.
There you go. Well, maybe
Can you guys not hear me?
I can hear you
Yeah, we
now.
can.
Welcome, Landry.
Okay, cool. What's up?
Landry, just to give a quick introduction, welcome here. Will you just say hey, and what game are you playing?
Right now I'm playing Prince of Persia. It's pretty rad. And hello,
Nice.
everyone. I think I've met everyone here. I know Nate through Twitter. I don't know if I've met you, Kurt, but nice to meet you.
Meet you.
Wonderful. Love making these connections. So with that, a few more details on session 1 as we dig into that. Oh, hey, it's Mark from the future. At this point in the podcast, I'm just about to explain a whole bunch of rules on how session 1 works and with time limits and whatnot, and those rules are immediately broken, and it makes for a better podcast. So chopping all that out here, and just to explain what we do, we go around, we pitch our picks, we talk about them, and then we vote on them, and there's no need to overcomplicate it. We do this until we have at least 12 games that make it onto the list, plus an equal number of turns, and in this case, we ultimately get 3 picks each. Not all of them make it, but after that, rather than the 2 other sessions that I mentioned, we actually condense it down and just each suggest and vote on 2 edits each. We kind of figure out how that works as we go. If all that seems way too complicated, well, I assure you it was much worse. So you're welcome. Back to the podcast. All right, we're going to set with our randomizer. Our order will be, we'll be going Jordan, Kurt, Nate, Biza, Mark, Billie, and then Landry goes last. All righty. Okay. We will dive right in. Jordan, I believe the floor is yours.
So I have 90 seconds to pitch one of my 12 games I recommended.
One of your 12 games.
Doesn't necessarily have to be the one that I'm putting at the top.
Right. It can be any of your 12. Or
Okay.
it could be, if you just get inspired, you could do an entirely different game that's not on your list. You're welcome to pitch any game you want.
I think I'm actually going to come out with the number 1 game that I put on my list, and I'm going to say the original Doom. My reasoning, I filled out this list with a lot of genre specific ones, like which ones would rule the genres. But I would have to say that the one game to rule them all would definitely have to be the one that has if they could have put Mordor speech, the black speech into it, they would have. It created the ability it created the imagination of everyone to start creating 3D worlds, which we all know and love today. Carmack basically invented computer graphics programming for games to build that engine, and spawned Half-Life, BioShock, a myriad of first-person shooters. It is the grandpappy of all 3D games, even if it isn't necessarily 3D. So that is my pitch for Doom being way up there.
Well said. Okay. All right. Any initial reactions? Any one or two sentence gut reactions?
I mean, that's a solid shot. That's a solid pick. Like, I mean, the only reason it didn't go on my list is because I think personally, like, we're at a point where, and I guess I'm not trying to get too far ahead. A lot of my list is a lot more current, just because I think like a lot of older games, frankly, are surpassed by their progeny, for a lack of a better term. So, but Doom, I mean, you're right. It's like it is foundational to video games as we know them now. So
I played it for the first time 2 years ago, and I had a blast with it. I thought it was
it
really
rips.
fun. Yeah,
It still does. And you can play it on a TI 83 or whatever that graphing calculator is.
Dude, it's
Nice.
better than Skyrim because you can literally put it on anything.
Do we have any thoughts against? Anyone want to argue against this? If not,
So this makes it really tough because
go ahead.
Throwing out Doom so quickly, no, this is going to be cutthroat. But I feel like it's innate for the same aspect of like, yes, it's easy to pick up because you can play it on anything. I just never personally thoroughly enjoyed it. And yes, it's instrumental, but it's not good now.
Well, with that, speak now, or we will head into voting here. Jordan, anything final you want to say as well as a final argument?
I mean, it's the deep magic. That's what Doom is. It's the stone table that hasn't been broken yet.
Well, fair enough. Okay, we will head into voting. We'll do this by. It's going to do this by raising hands.
So when we do the yay or nay, we're not voting specifically for that rank. We're just voting to keep it, like just saying like arbitrarily yay or nay, and then we're collating it based on the number of votes.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Of like, yes, I think this should be on our list, or no, I don't think it should make the list. So all in favor, if you would raise your hands. That is a 4. All against. I'm not convinced of it. So that's a 4 to a 2. We had 1 abstination. Biza, do you abstain, Biza? You have no.
I will be abstaining probably on every game that I have not played, which will probably be a lot of the games on this discussion.
Well, fair enough. I think there might be some truer, better games out there, but I am compelled. But we'll see. Okay, next up, Kurt. It is your choice now. What is your game, or one of your games?
I'm gonna pick Super Metroid. I think
Solid.
Super Metroid has a interesting mix of both being a foundation for, a whole genre, the Metroidvania genre, and like indie games, like so many indie games coming from that, but it's also like fairly old, and it's from Nintendo. It's very iconic. So it has kind of both sides of that going. It's fairly old, but it also I mean, compared to a lot of games from back then, holds up pretty well. So I think it's pretty timeless and iconic. I think it opened. It was one of the first games that really opened that that style of game where it wasn't nearly as linear. It was, you could, in some capacity, choose your own path and unlock things. And I think it really influenced game design in addition to like standing on its own. Yeah, so I think it both represents Metroidvania. It represents kind of the just that aspect of like progression and opening up the world and exploring. And so, yeah, it's also really cool.
Nice. Well said. For gut reaction, I do think a Metroidvania should be on this list. I don't know if this is the one this wasn't the one I went with, but it's high up there. Any other instant reactions?
It's on my list, and I think it is not only like one of the foundational Metroidvanias, but also, I mean, even if you're putting together like a top 10 list of Metroidvanias, I think almost everyone would still put it in there because it hits so hard in the present day. Plus, one of the best replay value games I think ever made.
Any formal arguments against Super Metroid?
Yeah, I'll throw my hat into the ring on this one. And I played Super Metroid a couple years ago, and Josh and I played that, and we doubled up on that in Symphony of the Night. And frankly, it is a situation where I just was not okay. And this is going to sound really dumb, but I was enjoying the game up until the point where I wasn't, where it's just like the data design really started to slap me in the face. And one of the most sort of egregious areas is I really struggled. Like, they have that grappling hook. And listen, like, anybody who has listened to any content, like, you throw a grappling hook into things and I'm going to love it, like, by orders of magnitude. And for me to just kind of like actually sour on, some of the execution of the mechanics, I do think it's foundational, and I do think a Metroidvania belongs on
10
this
seconds.
list, but I don't think Super Metroid is the best. It's not best in class as far as I'm concerned. It's an excellent game, foundational, but no.
Okay. Any arguments for as well, alongside Kurt?
I think if you're going purely by like top 10 Metroidvanias, I actually personally would pick, Hollow Knight. I think I enjoy more, but I think that it holds up well and still is fairly high, even though and other Metroidvanias built on that. I think that puts it above the other ones because it's still enjoyable despite, yeah, I will admit that, yeah, if I was just going off of purely my favorite games, I'd pick Hollow Knight over it.
Fair. Any other arguments against? All right, let's move into voting here. For all those four, if you would raise your hand. That is 3-4. And Landry has balloons now. That's great. All those against, please raise your hand. 1, 2. We have 2 abstentions. Is abstention
played
a
it.
word? Oh,
Abstention.
Abstention. Thank you. I was like, that's not quite right.
Absternation.
Absternation. All right, so we are still at Doom and Super Metroid. Both have a net positive, but Doom is slightly above so far. Next up, Nate, is your pick.
I'm going to throw on my slot number 1 just because I feel like get it out there early. It's Shadow of the Colossus. And again, for anybody who has been listening to the breakdown, this is a game I champion often. For a lot of reasons. I think it sort of exemplifies a minimalist design and sort of, one, I do think it's foundational. I think so much of modern game design sort of takes notes from this game. I do think one of the beauties of it is really designed by deletion, is that it strips out all the unnecessary things and it kind of just leaves you with a lot of questions and an absolutely fascinating and haunting experience that frankly I don't think we see in game design anymore. I mean, I'm playing Elden Ring now, and some of the exploration, even though Elden Ring's a much busier world, some of the exploration reminds me of that, just because there is kind of a loneliness and just sort of an isolation, but like I said, I think it's just one of those games that I know that for a lot of people it doesn't hold up, but I think if we're being honest, I think a lot of the people that whose work I admire, they often cite Shadow of the Colossus as being, somewhat inspirational, if not a bit of a touchstone for their own work. So, I mean, I just think it's great. I think it's a cult classic, and yes, I'm totally out of myself as the artsy fartsy nerd. So. But that's my pitch.
You mean the PlayStation 2 guy? Is that what you outed yourself out? I'm kidding.
I mean, I've played it on all of them. I mean, like it's like I said, it's one of a handful of games that I will bring out and play frequently. So,
all right. Any single sentence reactions so far?
I had a lot of people whose opinions I admire who will say similar things to Nate, being like praise Shadow of the Colossus. Like I've never actually played it, sadly, but yeah. So that's a plus in my mind.
I love the world building and like the atmosphere of the game, but I really disliked playing it. Like I did go back. Like I was like, oh, that there's all this stuff that takes inspiration from this, and then playing through like climbing on all the colossuses was so tedious. Like for me, and so yeah, it was frustrating to play. But like if I watched someone play who knew how to play, I think it'd be cool, and I'd enjoy it. But I didn't enjoy the act of playing it personally.
And this is just like more curiosity. What version did you play?
I believe it was the PlayStation 3 remastered.
Yeah. Yeah, the controls are abysmal. And the PS2 and PS3 versions of the game, the controls are not great. I'd like to say that the PS4 versions controls are better, and they are, but not by much. It's definitely where the interaction suffers, but yeah.
Okay. I have a formal disagreement to this. I think Shadow of the Colossus is beautiful, and it was haunting, and it was atmospheric, and it was just painfully boring. I got about halfway through, and I was just waiting for something or just anything else to happen. Fighting the Colossi was a fun puzzle for like the first 4 or 5 times, and I burnt out. And the world, particularly in the remake, is really gorgeous. I only played the remake, but it is entirely empty, and it just becomes this. It's a space to travel through and not actually a place to navigate. And like you're mentioning, the controls, it's like intentionally clunky in a way that makes you feel weak and small in a kind of a cool way, but it's ultimately not fun to move or press buttons. And that's I bounced off of it. I wanted to like it. I want to be artsy fartsy, but I couldn't. So there you have it.
I don't know if we can be friends anymore, Mark.
This has been such a fun time.
No, what I would like to answer that criticism though is like I recognize the controls even in the PS4 version. What I would say, and it's like as sort of like my rebuttal, is that I think it hails back to a design or a school of design theory or philosophy that frankly we just don't get anymore. It's a significantly slower burn, and like even on my replays, I find like almost sort of like a bit of an ADHD kind of like thing where it's like do something, but it is a lot more contemplative. I think where it's just like it's a game that asks you to sit in an uncomfortable space for a while, and I just think it kind of flies in the face of modern game design in that sense. But yes, I understand the criticisms. I just think that, without saying it, I'm going to say it, get good.
Fine.
Is it like
won't.
similar to like watching an older movie, like a 1950s Ben-Hur or something like that, where it's like this just I mean, even the original Star Wars had just moments of drawn out. No, it was wonderful. I love Star Wars, and I prefer this style, but I understand people growing up in modern day movies and TV shows cannot watch the old Star Wars. Like, I understand why they can't, because they're so expectant of these constant dopamine hits of some sort of explosion or heads blowing up if you're watching some Amazon Prime show.
No, I think that's a perfectly legitimate sort of point of comparison. So,
well, nice. All right. We've broken all my rules, but I actually feel like this is working better. So let's just keep rolling with this. I'll try to keep us clipping along so that we're not like taking way too much time, but you know what?
I tried not to, Mark. I tried to play.
You broke them so quickly. Oh my word. This is good podcasting. Let's keep going with this, and then we'll make sure everyone kind of feels like their voice is heard when they want to be heard. Well, let's move into voting now. For all in favor of Shadow of the Colossus, if you please raise your hands. And that is a 1.
Yeah. You're all allowed to be wrong, but I just want you to know that you're all wrong.
No, fair. All right. All who are wrong, please also raise your hands. Wow. Okay. That's a 3. We've got a lot of abstentions.
Yeah, I can't wait to play the game. I think that it will be awesome. I think it's right up my alley, Nate. I just have never played it, unfortunately, but
It's
I will
yeah.
play it.
I had a feeling that this was actually how it was going to go because it's such like a weird, like sort of like cult piece of media where, and I do think too, when you play things matters, but that's something for a different time.
Mm. That's a different topic. Save that for the back pocket. That's content.
Everything is content.
All right, Biza, you're up next. What is your first pick?
Oh boy. I should have thought about this more while other people were talking and I was not contributing, but let me go with, since we've been going with some older games, I'll go with a more recent one. My top pick was Red Dead Redemption 2. And this game, along with Animal Crossing, got me through the early months of the pandemic. And it is just such a beautiful game that also has an amazing storyline. I think you can play the main storyline, just stick to that, and it's an amazing journey to go on. You can also spend time just like sitting around camp and like interacting with the other camp members and have a great story from that type of gameplay. You can go do, hunting and scavenging side quests. There are so many different elements that come together in this game that it makes it, I think, probably my favorite game that I've ever played. So that's my number one.
A solid pick. That was not necessarily on my list, but it was on my my backup list. So, do you have any? So, starting out, any kind of general thoughts against?
I'm just curious why Red Dead Redemption 2 versus Red Dead Redemption 1. Like, have you played both of them, and why choose 2 over 1?
No, I have not played the first one. I mean, I do think Red Dead Redemption 2, it's a more recent game. The part of the appeal of it to me is how beautiful the graphics are. So I would think that would still like bump it up for me based on that. Of course, as I said, I haven't played the first one, so I can't speak authoritatively.
I have Red Dead 2 really high on my list, so I'm super stoked to see this on here already. But I loved Red Dead Redemption 1. It was my favorite PS3 game. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is a better paced game than Red Dead Redemption 1. When you go to Mexico and Red Dead Redemption, the game just kind of really like screeches to a halt as far as momentum goes, in my opinion. And Red Dead Redemption 2 has some flaws, or at least some things that it was criticized for. I think some of the gameplay mechanics are deliberately slow paced, but to me, it made the whole entire cohesiveness of the world hit in a way that most video games don't. And in some ways it was tedious and annoying, but just like, simple lack of conveniences of modern gameplay mechanics were stripped out, I think, from the game purposefully. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Story-wise, some of the plot points were repetitive, but overall that game is like a complete masterpiece. So I think it is one of the best single-player narrative games. I've never played any of the online stuff.
The online stuff is hot garbage sometimes.
Oh, really?
and not because it's like the gameplay is bad or anything, but like the hackers everywhere because Rockstar just doesn't care.
Bummer. All right. Any other arguments before Biza gives a final one?
This is 2 games in a row where it's an open field and you're on a horse. And that is just not my cup of tea. If Mark says Ocarina of Time, that's 3 in a row and I'm gone.
There is a
I
horse.
can't get I can't get away.
It's not going to be
open
Ocarina of
field
Time.
horses.
It's going to be Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Come on, like.
I'm a certified horse girl, so
Oh my.
that
Incredible.
will not ever be a complaint for me.
Perfect.
I don't care how fast they run or like what shrinks. I just can't enjoy open fields and horses.
I forgot about that. Anyway, Biza, do you have any final argument that you'd like to close out with before we vote?
We also just shout out the original song from
Oh,
Red
my
Dead Redemption
goodness.
2. Okay,
So good.
Mark, remind me of who sings it. I
I
am
can
blinking.
find it. I don't know why.
But
I can almost
like,
hum it.
I'm not as much into listening to video game music as you are, Mark, but this particular song was made it into my rotation.
That's the Way It Is by Daniel Lanois.
There we go.
There is also the house building song, which is maybe one of the greatest musical moments in a video game ever. That comes in the appendix. Or is the appendix? Epilogue. That's a word. Anyway, all votes for, if you would please raise your hands. As a 3 votes for. All votes against, if you would also. As a 1 vote against. Leaves us with 3 abstentions. Did everyone get a chance to, or am I missing anyone there? All right. That puts us currently now at Doom, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Super Metroid. Further
Do you
down.
scroll all the way down for Nate's?
Yeah. That's the way that I'm doing the sorting. It puts at the
Sorry,
very
Nate.
bottom.
You know
I
what? Just
apologize.
rub salt in my wounds.
Blame Google Sheets. So, all right. It is my turn now. And I will say it's not Breath of the Wild, but it does have a horse. Let me pull up my notes here. It's very important. So, my first pick is Stardew Valley. So, not only, it's very on brand. Of course it was. So, not only is Stardew Valley an indie game juggernaut that just keeps on giving with updates 8 years after it was released, and not only did it nearly single-handedly bring about the cozy game genre into the mainstream, and not only does it provide an endless loop and deceptively deep mechanics, but it nails the really good feeling of just getting stuff done in a video game. So most every action feels great, and it makes literal chores just feel awesome. And the to-do list has never been better. It has just a ton of stuff in it, customization, relationships, strategy, and there's an entire roguelike dungeon crawler inside it. And all of that can be cooperative multiplayer if you want that. But also not only that, but I believe it's emblematic of the perfect spiritual successor. So it's taking explicit inspiration from Harvest Moon, but also improving on just about everything. And it has inspired countless games itself too. But the true inspiration that it provides is the inspiration of creativity, and that it was having been made almost entirely by one person. It is a perfect window into how the fruits of one's labor and effort and skill and hours can just create something that really brings people together. So there's my pitch for Stardew Valley. Do we have any arguments going against this masterpiece?
It's not fair for you to just say masterpiece.
It's
I
my
didn't know
podcast.
I could use that word.
I have
I
one
will-
counter argument. Oh, sorry, Billy. Go ahead.
I will agree that I had a farming simulator on my list as well. I'm not going to say what it was.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh,
but-
that's good.
I guess
Farm
my
Sim
question is,
2022.
Power World?
Stardew Valley?
Is it-
No,
it's-
it's not Power World. It was a Harvest Moon, Friends of Mineral Town. That was not going to get voted up. Is it still made by one person? Because I know there's updates. Is it still the
Right.
one person, or does he have a team now?
I think it's hard to tell. I think there is another person involved, but there's also the publisher helped a lot with like coding in like the online multiplayer and stuff like that. So it's not entirely just him, but it's mostly him. All right, Landry, you have something to say?
Yeah, and this is kind of a silly half-formed thought, but I'm going to vote against Stardew Valley, so I'll go ahead and speak it out loud.
How dare you?
The thing about
That's why we're
Stardew
here.
Valley for me is I really liked it. I probably put 90 hours into it, but to me, it is a very addictive video game, and that's not exactly what I look for in what I consider the greatest video games of all time. I'm looking for more of an experience that's going to speak to me on some kind of like, I don't know, spiritual or human level. And Stardew Valley didn't hit on anything gameplay mechanics. It's got all of that in spades, and it, like I said, it's very addictive. But for me, it's not one of those games that I just consider to be in the greatest games of all time.
Fine.
I'll add to that is I haven't actually played it, but I did get it from my wife, and dishes piled up in the sink after she got it. So I'm going to be voting against it also.
Just a personal vendetta against
Oh my god.
this. Well, go ahead. Biza, do you have?
I put this on my list. I think
Nice.
I'm a little torn on it because actually I didn't get quite as addicted to it as I thought maybe I should have. And I think there were other games like Animal Crossing, New Horizons that appeal to me more, partly because of the graphics, I think. I think that the like pretty basic graphics do get in the way for me a little bit. That being said, it's probably going to be one of the only other games on this list that I have actually played and enjoyed. So I probably would vote yes.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts before giving any closing arguments?
Oh, one other thing is that I think it does have good cooperative online play. That was fun to play together with people. I think not that many other games have a good version of that.
Yes, I would agree. Oftentimes there's plenty of competitive online play, but few games have really satisfying cooperative. So I don't know why it being addictive is that much of a problem. I feel like that's the mark of a good game, but I understand the need there to have good priorities. But also, I have no more to say about it besides that's an incredible game that I think should be on this list. So let's move into the voting. For all those for, if you please raise your hand. All right, that is 3-4. If all those against, that is 2 against, which leaves. Landry, did you vote against? I saw that was Nate, Jordan, and Landry. Okay. Well, we are at a 0 for Stardew Valley, which that's a bummer. But Billie, you are up next. If you would.
It's vengeance from Nate.
Man, I know it's pure spite.
I would I kind of held my tongue, but what I would say with Stardew Valley is I haven't played it, but Landry, I haven't played it for the very reasons you mentioned, that I know I would like it, and I know that it's engineered to just be a dopamine factory. And while I can respect that, that's not the kind of experience that I'm after. So
that's fair. Well, at 0 votes, Stardew Valley is not included in our 12, so there are still 2 spots open to make up as we keep going around. So Billie, if you would give your first pick.
Okay, well, I'm really scared because I'm all about dopamine hits. I'm all about free to play games, and I'm throwing the king of free to play games out there, Fortnite.
Oh no.
Yeah, let's get away from the battle royale because we already know it's phenomenal. You got the festival, which has been really cool now that the instruments are in. Rocket racing, still subpar, but you know what? It'll get there. Battle royale wasn't built in like a day. You still have what is the survival mode called? I don't care. It was the foundation of Fortnite. It's still really good, aged like milk, but still really good. And no, there's nothing else to say. This is a dopamine hit, and it is the king of everything that free to play wants to be at this point now.
Well, there's that. All right. Any arguments against Fortnite?
oh my goodness. Oh, I mean, so we're going to sort of like all style, no substance, where it's like this game is just an amalgamation. It's like any pop culture reference we can latch onto. And it's like the gameplay loop is substantial. I'll give, even in the core game, the battle royale, the no build mode, I'm a fan of what they're doing, but this has like hard no. Sorry, friend. Hard no.
Any arguments in favor of Fortnite?
So, go ahead.
Well, I think it's had some pretty incredible longevity as a game. Even comparing it to things like Call of Duty, usually those are kind of, you get a new game and then people play it for a while and then they stop playing it. And then another game comes out and then they start playing it for a while. But Fortnite has had, I think, some incredible longevity that most other games don't have. For me personally, I'm biased because my siblings and I have used that as a way to like stay closer, stay connected. And like, I actually feel like this game has made my relationships with my siblings closer than it otherwise would have been. And also the Lego Fortnite mode is just like, I love it. I always love Lego games. And this one has been so much fun. And to have that as a totally different type of gameplay within the same game, I think is pretty awesome.
Well, that was kind of compelling about bringing people together. I do like that. Oh, Kurt, yes, go ahead.
I think for me, like, it was actually on my top 12. I don't personally like Fortnite, but I think if you're talking about the top 12 games like of all time, I think it has to be considered just because of the sheer scale of it and the cultural impact and just how huge it is and like how much they do. I think just saying that it's not on the list because I don't personally like it. I feel like it's so big. It's bigger than me. Like, so yeah, I think it just it's in its own class. It's in its own weight class.
But it's this is what I think what I'm sort of saying is like, yes, it's massive. And while I can acknowledge that it has beneficial sort of like components, right? And it's done things that a lot of other games haven't done with nearly as much success. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, it is a game that I think that the real appeal sort of is the fact that it's mostly just style. It's the constant reinventing, the constant like sort of grabbing on to pop culture items. Like that's the kind of stuff where it's like, it's not necessarily like, it's not the gameplay loop with the exception of maybe like the Lego sort of expansion. It's more about this sort of like, it's a virtual space for people to hang out in. And I'm not sure that, again, it's one of those things where it's like, we have to give it the nod, but you want to talk about games that have been around for forever. Like, are we talking about World of Warcraft? Are we talking about
Destiny?
on
my list.
It's on my list.
I think it's worth considering, like, for the same reasons. Like, it's like places for like it's not just a game, it's a place for people to come together. And I think that is very important to like consider.
And again, I'll give the nod to it, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's the weakest in some of like these categories. Just because it's the most recent phenom and it's been especially strong in the last 3 or 4 years.
It's not even recent. This game has been out since what, 2018? This is 6 years of dominance going strong. This is not even a recent thing.
So
I mean, I remember that. Go ahead.
I think one thing that might be helpful to think about is that I wonder if we're each approaching this little list a little differently.
Oh,
if
absolutely.
we're approaching this as the best games, most like well-crafted games of all time, you may not put Fortnite on there. If you're looking at a list that is trying to put the, I don't know, most representative sample of a specific type of genre or a specific type of game, I think Fortnite really does make sense because I think it is really emblematic of the type of game that it is, regardless of whether it is not, whether or not it's everyone's cup of tea.
No, and I think that's fair, but the problem with the cultural impact argument is that there are mobile games out there that have a bigger cultural impact than Fortnite does, and so but we go into genres that honestly a lot of mobile games I wouldn't exactly.
Who's adding Candy Crush?
Well, Candy Crush is one, or Clash of Clans. I mean, Super Bowl commercials happen with Clash of Clans. Like there are people like more people play Clash of Clans and probably Candy Crush than touch Fortnite kind of thing. Like the global market for mobile games is immense. And I know Fortnite can be played on mobile, but like this is thing. So if we're going with like impact overall, and we can't like I have no problem if that's your criteria, but you have to be like, well, does Fortnite even sniff, the shoes of these other mobile games that have a larger impact over culture wide scale? And I don't know.
I think finances and culture is two different things completely. Because I'm
interesting
not
point,
watching
Billy.
kids.
Yeah.
I'm not watching kids throw the giddy just because.
As a middle school teacher, Fortnite is the culture. Like, I mean, in middle schools, it reigns supreme, and it has for. Now personally, I don't think that's an excellent argument to put it on a list of top 12 video games. I think, I think Elizabeth's argument of just saying that we're all approaching this from different areas is really fascinating, because like my criteria is not including like what kind of, well, I guess it is what kind of impact you've had, but in a different way. Like, I'm not necessarily looking at how they've impacted the culture, but more like other developers or other criticisms towards video games, I think is more the lane I'm in right now.
And
I mean, look at where we're at now, where every publishers like chase that free to play game. And now we're in such a stall because everybody has backpedaled from that because you can't be a Fortnite.
well, and what I would say though is like, and where I'm coming from it specifically to sort of like piggyback on to what Landry said, and even to, yes, absolutely, Elizabeth, I'm coming at this probably from a much different direction than a lot of people. But what I'm saying is like, it's not, to me, it's not best in class, because I'm like, I look at what is one thing that Fortnite has done that no other game, like the best part, the part that exploded. So that original mode was called Save the World. But the part that exploded was actually them just completely sort of like lobotomizing, what was it? Not World War Z, PUBG. And it's like, and I'm just saying, like, and again, I'm not saying this to like, hey, people can like what they like. And I'm not even saying it's terrible. But what I'm saying is like, and we're saying, oh, it's cultural impact, it's massive, it's been a facilitator for all these good things. And I'm like, that's not bad, but that's not a video game. Like that's something that has aped video. It's a video game shaped object. And I guess I'm just like, that's where I'm coming from.
My own, now I'm torn with it all after all this. My own concern with Fortnite and why I was originally against it, now I have no idea, is like because it was almost too good, in the sense of like, I feel like it's overall for the industry, it's been a net negative because now everyone wants a Fortnite. And I think that's hindered a lot of creativity in the sense that's like everyone's like, it's too good, which is maybe a bad argument for it not to be on the list, but it's like I'm more frustrated by the success of Fortnite than I've enjoyed it, which I also say that as someone who really got sucked into Lego Fortnite for
I got to push back just a little bit on that, Mark, because every single like extremely successful game ends up with clones. Like I put Doom out there, and immediately for the 5 years after that, everyone was calling first person shooter Doom clones until someone came up with the first person shooter moniker. Like World of Warcraft comes out and everybody's trying to develop MMOs. It doesn't necessarily lessen the impact. And I'm like, I'm not a big fan of Fortnite, but it doesn't necessarily lessen the impact of this, and nor does it necessarily make the net negative impact on the gaming culture or video game development. Does like, just because it's other people are trying to, clone it, isn't necessarily a bad thing. They're like, yes, innovation should be strived for, but money does talk in this industry, and people are trying to get that piece of pie.
Sure. Okay. That's fair. So, all right. Billy, any final thoughts before we move into voting?
This is going to be my worst take ever.
So ready.
I do not think video games should ever be compared to art. I think video games are toys for people, and I'm about the dopamine hits, and Fortnite provides that. It's a toy that I enjoy.
Nice. Now we gotta get you and Nate in the room to to really duke this out.
All I'll say is that that's a fine perspective, but that should not be the only perspective.
Oh no, that's just one perspective, like off of others.
Yeah.
It's just one. Yeah.
Well, nice. Good discussion. Let's move forward with voting here. All those in favor, if you would please raise your hands. That's a 1, 2, 3. All those against, if you would also raise your hands now. That's a 1, 2, 3. I can't decide, so I'm out. So that puts Fortnite at a 0. Well,
Right next to Stardew Valley.
yeah. All right, fine.
I think that's probably accurate.
Oh.
I can't believe no one ever mentioned the whole canonical Star Wars plot point happened in Fortnite.
Oh, ridiculous.
Palpatine's return before the
Somehow.
absolute
Oh, that's
trash
right.
last movie.
Somehow, Palpatine returned.
That's in Fortnite, not an
I
actual
stopped
Star
paying
Wars
attention
movie.
to Star Wars after Last Jedi.
So full disclosure, like every time I hear you guys talk about the Fortnite Lego mode, I am just insane with envy because I want to try it out so badly. I have Fortnite installed on my PS5.
Just do it,
but
man.
I just can't. I just can't. I'm just telling you guys, like, it's mostly jealousy. And also I think Fortnite is everything that's wrong with video game industry. So
Well, let's move on. All right, Landry, it is your turn now.
Oh
What do you
man,
got
I
for
wish
us?
I had prepared more for this. But The Last of Us is what I'm going to choose here because it is a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions, and I do not think that the gamer culture was ready for it when it released. And it's hard not to wrap up part 1 and part 2 into one kind of just continuous story, but it's a story of redemption through love, but it doesn't end in a very positive way. It doesn't end in the way that like we would traditionally want like a narrative to go. And it's just kind of like gut wrenching, and it wrecked me personally when the first time I played it. And I have probably talked on podcasts about this game for over 10 hours. And I just think that the character relationship between Ellie and Joel is some of the best writing and performances I've seen in a video game. I think The Last of Us is an excellent argument to the fact that a lot, I think it's really popular for people to say that like narratives and video games don't really work together well, or that video games aren't a suitable place to tell a narrative. And I think The Last of Us is a pretty good argument that it can be done well in a pretty, structured way. I think the TV show gives you a kind of a belittled version of what the video game offers, and that you just grow to love the characters a lot more through the video game's presentation of the story. And also the gameplay mechanics. People will say that, sometimes the mechanics aren't that great, but I think for the survival horror genre, it's got some of the best mechanics that are on in the genre, period. I mean, if you put up the mechanics next to Resident Evil, which I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil series, I think that they are heads and tails better. And I just think that the progression of the game itself is pretty great. And I know there's some flaws with it, but I think that overall it's just a very innovative and I think foundational video game experience for narrative and storytelling in video games.
Strong argument. This was not on my list, but it might have convinced me. I'll go ahead and give my thoughts here. I've gotten a little tired of The Last of Us, and everyone always talks about how The Last of Us is just the pinnacle of narrative, and it probably deserves it. I wish there was more like The Last of Us. Also, The Last of Us is just like, I've never played it. It's just honestly far too dark than what I want to really dig into, and that's not a moral choice there. It's more just a stomach choice. And so I have a lot of respect for it. I am again tired of it, but I like Landry, everything you're saying there, like that makes sense. It clicks. I think it probably deserves a spot in this list.
yeah, I have almost nothing to add to what Landry said. And Mark, while I understand, I would sort of, and even as a counterpoint to what Billy said, like he doesn't need games to be art, or he doesn't want them to be art. I think The Last of Us is comparable to Schindler's List in the sense that it takes us to some very dark spaces. It asks us to inhabit some very like grim circumstances. And that is tough. That is tough. I also think that's something in a way that only video games can really sort of like impact us in that way. There's something about inhabiting those spaces, inhabiting like, and having Joel be your cipher in that sort of that desolation, that it's tough, but it's good. And like I said, Mark, I get the fatigue because as much as I like
part
that
of it's
game,
jealousy. I wish I could play this and not be messed up, but it would mess me up. So
yeah. And as much as I really do enjoy the game, it is kind of like just like my eye, like I just kind of like reflexively roll my eyes every time. I'm like, of course, it's like the duh thing for me. I'm like, yeah, okay.
any further thoughts from anyone else as well?
I think the story is great. The problem I had when I played this originally was, and I don't know if this is fixed in the remakes or anything, the immersiveness of the actual gameplay itself, because you are two characters essentially. You're playing as one, but you've got Ellie behind you. And there's times where like she's touching the creature and it completely just ruins the mood for me. Or she's making noises even though you're not supposed to make noises and it's not registering because that's not your character you're playing as. It and that was very early on in that game. And every time I got to the actual gameplay, I just never felt immersed in that. So I always felt like it was the gameplay, I was always out of immersion. Loved the story, but I don't need a video game for the story that it provided, honestly.
Yep. You there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. We heard honestly, and then it cut out.
Oh no, I just stopped because I was waiting
okay.
for someone to yell at me.
I've got
I'm not gonna-
PTSD.
I'm
We're
not
only an
gonna-
hour in.
I'm not going to yell at you. I'm just going to let you know that you're wrong.
I have not really played this game. Maybe I've played like a tiny little bit of it. I've watched my husband play it a little bit. I have watched the TV show. I think The Last of Us deserves at least some credit for being the basis of probably like the only good, TV or movie that was adapted from a TV show or from a video game. So that's what I have to say.
I feel like those were fighting words, but I actually can't really refute them. I like the Mario Bros. Movie, but it wasn't excellent. But
The new Fallout show has a higher IMDb score, doesn't it?
Has that wrapped up? Or are there
The
new
first season
episodes? Oh, okay. Yeah, I have not watched that yet. So that could be the case.
But I'll say you're
Maybe it's
probably
the
right.
start.
Even as much as I love like that old Doom movie, that I was at you Bowl that made that. It was great. It's terrible.
I think someone said they were playing Prince of Persia. That movie.
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
I just love the fact that this has devolved into like talking about movie scores in IMDb. Like I'm
Holy metrics.
rejoicing over here in my little cavern of chaos.
Oh,
So
my word. It's because I invited you here. I was like, Nate, you got to make it. You're going to love this. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
you did. You did. You knew. You knew.
Quick shout out to Arcane. League of
Oh, my
Legends.
goodness. Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna
That's
say
an
that.
incredible show.
Yeah, Last of Us did it. No, Arcane started it. I feel like Sonic started it. Arcane perfected it.
I haven't watched Arcane yet.
It's surprisingly great. Yeah.
I've heard really good things about it.
That's the League of Legends
Yeah.
cartoon
Yes.
thing. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Well, he's artsy fartsy. So, sorry, Landry, any final arguments before we get into the voting?
Yeah, I'll just say that the show, I was pretty cold on the show personally, and I think that the real problem with the show for me was that I feel like in the video game, one of the things that really just challenged me and that I thought about for years was I feel like there were some morally ambiguous decisions that you had to make as a character, a player character, and it got in my head, and something I thought about a lot, and I think the show telegraphs the moral decision for you. I think because of the way it's directed, because of some of the kind of things about the different factions by the time you get to the kind of scene that I'm talking about, and because of the way they scored that scene as well, you the viewer the choice is made for you, and there wasn't this kind of moral ambiguity that I feel like the video game was able to offer the player. And so for me, like, this penultimate moment of the series fell a little flat in the TV show, and I feel like that's going to be missed out by a lot of people, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the video game still has a lot to offer to people who decide to pick it up at some point.
Very nice. Okay. Well, all those 4, if you please raise your hands. That's a 1, 2, 3. All those against. That is a 1 and a 2. We have 2 holding back, but that puts Last of Us at a positive 1. Right below Super Metroid.
It's on the list.
And made it to the list. Man, this is gonna. We're now back to Jordan again. I know I said no rules anymore, but if we can keep things going, there's a bedtime that will have to happen eventually. So Jordan, what is your second pick?
Second pick is Minecraft, the granddaddy of sandboxes, the first survival game that really came out, the pinnacle, or not the pinnacle, definitely the start of the indie boom, as we think of it. It was the first self-published game that I can think of after the console wars, like Xbox and PlayStation came around. But it also spawned a myriad of people trying to clone. Fortnite kind of started from that before they went battle royale. You have Daisy, Rust, Ark, all of these things, and still Minecraft rises above them all, except for maybe Roblox. So
fair enough. All right. Arguments. Any thoughts for or against?
I just want to say that Minecraft has quality over robots any day.
That's true.
Yeah. When was Minecraft released? Was it like
the alpha was in 2004 when he first put an alpha out online, but 2007 was when it was actually given to people for money. That was when I first bought it, actually.
Yeah, that's an absurdly long time for a video game to still be relevant.
One that's not subscription or microtransactions. One box price. And
it's Minecraft. Even if it's not your cup of tea, it is definitely sort of like one of those games where it's like it gets the nod.
And the best part, with the sandbox aspect, is just like Legos. It's like, it's one of those games that I'm going to be comfortable letting my kids play very easy and be like, yeah, there's nothing, this is a perfectly fine game for you to play. Now, I don't think it's the pinnacle of video game art. I'm side more with Nate on art video games, but I think it's a phenomenal video game.
Yeah, not a game that is my cup of tea. I've never really played it. But in the way I'm thinking about this list, I would think this would need to be on there just in terms of its longevity, the impact it's had. When I have been babysitting, 8-year-old kids in the last couple of years and brought my Switch along, 2 separate families were like, do you have Minecraft on here? Can you put Minecraft on here? Which I think says a lot about what this video game means to a lot of people.
It's fair. I think it's also on my list. It's similar to me, or similar to Biza. Is not my cup of tea. I never actually really dug into it, but I respect it a ton. And I think, Jordan, of what you're saying of how it really started, kind of the indie boom, was not something I'd considered. I think it's well worth the spot even for that.
I mean, it's up there with Cave Story as far as being one of the more influential OG indie movement games. So it's it's not my cup of tea at all. I played it in 2007, 2008. And I was like, oh, this is neat. And I've moved on, but I've got mad respect for that. So.
All right, Jordan, any final arguments before we vote?
Nope.
Well, let's get to it. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That is a 6. Holy moly. All those against? That is none against. Landry, you're the one abstention. You hold that position. Well, I believe that puts Minecraft right at the top of the heap for us. So our list now is currently Minecraft, Red Dead Redemption 2, Doom, Super Metroid, and The Last of Us. And we will keep moving forward here. Kurt, what is your next pick?
All right. I was thinking about the one that I was most excited to talk about, and I think it's Dark Souls. I think Dark Souls is like a ton of fun. I think it's so it defines a genre of that kind of stamina based. Breath of the Wild took a lot of inspiration from it, even but just like the stamina based like action gameplay where you have to be very intentional about what you're doing and thoughtful, as opposed to like a hack and slash. But I think the difficulty is it's very difficult, but it's also very fair. It's like kind of that epitome of, if you do well, there's a lot of BS that happens, but like most of the time, if you die, there's a reason why and you can fix it. And I think that's like the ultimate like rewarding game experience and feedback loop of like you finally figure something out, enemies reset, but then the next time you go through, you know what to do. And it's very rewarding. The talking about storytelling, it's a very different storytelling, but it's amazing in that it's all environmental. You're going into this like decline of this like dark fantasy world, and you get to experience it. What you're experiencing as a player, like kind of is very similar to what like your character is, like undead, like kind of hopeless. You're working through things, and then you finally like get more powerful, rise to the top, and then you realize you're fighting all these like decrepit old like once powerful creatures. And so like, and you discover that through like item descriptions and like all the like just the bosses that you're encountering. And so you've got all of that just stuff that's going on that is really like, it really ties that stuff together, and there's so much just that you can dive into, and like this kind of like in the background, and like despite the kind of like dark tone you have, like the community is like surprisingly wholesome. Like it's like more camaraderie where everyone's working together, and it's like really goofy. So like I don't know, it like just all of that. It's great.
Yeah. All right. Any thoughts coming off of Dark Souls?
I would say that if in a world where dopamine hits are prevalent and pushed on us in video games, Dark Souls and most Soulsborne games are the antithesis to it, where it's like the dopamine hit that you get from finally succeeding is what a lot of the games I think should be striving for. You can go onto YouTube and see like all these YouTube channels reacting saying, Dark Souls saved my life because I was having suicidal thoughts type of thing. And like, I know like, and this just taught me the persistence and keep on trying and working towards a goal to get there. It'll probably be the one game that I haven't played that I will vote for because I have Elden Ring, which I would say is just a more perfected, I guess, version of Dark Souls. But like whatever Soulsborne game was going to be mentioned first I was going to vote for.
So, Jordan, as a Soulsborne fan, but not necessarily an Elden Ring fan, the thing about Dark Souls that just blew me away, all the things Kurt said, for sure, but also, and you may have some game design terms that I'm lacking here, but the architecture of the game is something I've never seen before. It's like a puzzle box, and every single area folds back into this central hub world. And whereas Elden Ring, you're kind of exploring this huge environment. I got really lost in Elden Ring, just to be frank, and I never really found my way in that game. But with Dark Souls, the design is the same. Like you can go kind of any of these places, but it just everything comes back to the central hub. So I never felt too lost. And I don't know, I've never played a game quite like it. It's hard to even find words to articulate what I mean, but it's incredibly designed and impeccably designed. I think you should If you haven't played it, give it a shot.
It's on my list, but Elden Ring was the only Soulsborne game I've played so far, so that's why I put that one down.
I'm not a hardcore Soulsborne. I dabble. I loved Bloodborne. I played original Demon Souls on PS3. I've dabbled in Dark Souls. I've never beaten any of that trilogy. And I'm fooling around with Elden Ring. And I like Landry. I really like because it is in the Soulsborne proper games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne. The world design is a puzzle box where everything loops and is connected, and half of it is exploration. And that and yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm loving Elden Ring, but it's like I am very much like in the spot where I'm like, oh, this is a little too big. I'm torn. I'm very, very torn here. Like, but yeah, that I just want to say master's class. Game is a master's class.
Yeah, I actually feel the same way about Elden Ring. I think it's amazing and like kind of a natural progression, but yeah, I like it is too big, like haven't gone back and played it because, the thought of spending, 150 hours again, like doing all that is so much. Whereas like, playing through Dark Souls, it's like a contained experience. And I think another plus of Dark Souls is the fact that there isn't a difficulty setting. I think that's really nice because that's the experience. Like it's a tailored experience. The developers want you to experience the game in a way. And so if you know that, then you figure out how to deal with it. And so if you have that ambiguity, at least for me, if I have that ambiguity is like, oh, do I go somewhere else? Do I do this other thing? Like, do I decrease the difficulty because I shouldn't be at this? Like that. That's something I don't always like about RPGs is like, do you level up or do you just get better at the strategy? Like what are you supposed to do? Whereas like Dark Souls, you can just practice. And I think that's really rewarding.
All right. Any final thoughts? Or Kurt, do you have anything more to say yourself?
Nope.
Well, let's vote then. All those four, if you please raise your hands.
Wait, I had a quick question about if you're in, I don't know, Elden Ring versus Dark Souls. Is that a debate that would be had later in the podcast?
Theoretically, yes. In our counter offer session.
Okay, cool.
So. All right. All those four, please raise your hands. So that is 4. And all those against? None against. That leaves 3 of us, including myself, who have abstained because I'm a weenie. I don't want to play Dark Souls, but I don't want to vote against it. That still puts it at number 2, right under Minecraft and right above Red Dead Redemption 2. All right, Nate, it is your turn now. What is your second pick?
I'm after just the absolutely devastating sort of response to Shadow of the Colossus, which again I expected, but I was still heartbroken over. I'm going to go for a bit of a win. I hope it's a win. I'm going to actually just nominate Hollow Knight. And while we're talking about Super Metroid, I think the thing is, I love Metroidvanias. I love the Castlevania games. I enjoy the Metroid games. I'm personally, as far as Metroid games go, I'm a zero mission guy. I think like that is like just aces. But I think Hollow Knight is just the perfect execution of like, yeah, I just, it's a master's class. And to think that was done by a team of like 2 or 3 guys. And just there isn't an aspect of that game that I don't like. It's tough. It's very hard at times, but it's just brutally fair. It's the level design, the creature design, the music, almost everything about that game is just like masterful. So I think like, yeah, it's Hollow Knight. It's got to be Hollow Knight.
I will be the first to go here. What I'm worried about is Hollow Knight kind of cribs a little bit too much for Super Metroid and Dark Souls each, and I'm worried that will end up taking a spot that could be diversified. I thought I would love Hollow Knight. I did not. I don't really know what it was. I think part of it is like I am not a glutton for punishment, and honestly, like punishing games
I
are
just don't. I think
frustrating.
you don't like to be sad, Mark.
It's
Whereas
true. I don't like to be sad.
I am sad all the time.
I'm sad. Keep going after you specifically, Nate.
You
I
don't
don't know
like
what's going on.
You don't like that there's an area called the City of Tears?
Wow. Honestly, that actually it's pretty sick. That's a cool name. I
He
also
probably didn't get that far.
okay. I played the whole game. I had a friend guide me through it because I was too annoyed. Also, I listened to the soundtrack today. And it's pretty awesome. But
Just watching a Let's Play doesn't count, though.
I played it myself. Come on, guys. I'm not that much of a weenie. Anyway, that's my concern here. It is not a game that I really enjoyed my full time with, but I respect it from afar. More thoughts?
I would, Nate. I want to agree with you so much because you've agreed with me on a couple points, and I like Hollow Knight a lot. I would probably give it like an 8 out of 10. But the things that I think a lot of people really enjoyed about it, I found it to be a little too cumbersome to explore. I'm a huge Metroidvania fan as well. I got lost so much during this game. I think it took me like 42 hours to beat. Actually, I know it took me 42 hours to beat because I was thinking about replaying it the other day, and I was like, that's just too much time. And maybe that's an abnormal time. I'm not sure. It was difficult, but I didn't mind the pushback there. I thought that what happened to me, and I don't know if this is like just a me thing. I felt like all the color palettes in all of the different areas looked so similar that I got really lost. Like I couldn't remember where I was in the game a lot of different times. And the soundtrack is a 10 out of 10. I listen to it all the time on Spotify. I have good feelings about the game. I just don't know that I'm willing to put it in the top 12 of all time.
I mean, you've got to be true to yourself, but that it's just I'm sad, but this is comfortable ground for me. Like this is just where I live, sad and lonely.
Well, you are one pharmaceutical commercial away from being a very happy guy. All right. Nate, do you have any final thoughts on Hollow Knight before we get to voting?
I mean, I know that it kind of cribs on like Dark Souls and Super Metroid territory. But and like I think I would agree with you, Landry. Now I tend to be what I've termed a slow gamer, where it's like how long to beat says like a game's 40 hours and I'm like 72. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. That's also like some of my completionist ticks. Like I'm the guy who like I want to see everything. It's that old school, like just like I poke around in all the corners, and it's I've only come to terms with that in the last couple of years. But like I said, I just think it's such a master's class in so many levels. And while there are some shortcomings, I think like too the other thing for me is like it's three guys, and three guys made this like seamless and just well built and sort of beautiful world. And again, it's like this is personal sort of just preference, but I think it does Metroid better than Metroid. And yeah, so
right. Well, with that, let's get to voting here. All those in favor of Hollow Knight, please raise your hands. That is a 1-2. All those against. There's a 1-2-3.
I wish I played some of these games, Nate, because then I could vote for it.
you guys hurt me.
You can still vote.
I don't feel comfortable. Like I've never gotten into Metroidvanias, and so it's like it's one of those genres and stuff. I'm like,
I've never been sort of more sort of like sad and proud of like my just like artsy fartsy nerd cred in my entire life.
I'm imagining you like
surprised.
Professor Skinner be like, is it me who's wrong or everyone else?
It's the children.
It's the children.
I have my own thoughts about Hollow Knight, but I felt like I was in the vast minority. So I'm kind of surprised that it's not there.
I thought it would be a win for me. I guess it's just
I'm sorry.
I was wrong. No,
I brought you here to experience pain.
You're all wrong. All of you are wrong.
It being the child of my two picks, I'm sad that it didn't do well.
That's fair. All right. Biza, what's your second pick?
Oh man, I'm really having a hard time deciding which one I'm going to go with. But I think just for the sake of discussion, bringing up one that I think is less likely to be picked by others would be Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. This one, okay, maybe some other people are going to bring that up.
That's right now. I'm gonna put my cards on the table. That's getting a go. Like, even though that game's old and dusty and dated, it's getting a go.
Yeah, this one is I don't know, maybe one of the first like substantial video games that I ever played. I played it in college, so it was already pretty dated by the time that I first played it. And as I've said before, I do kind of have a bias against video games that don't have great graphics. But with this one, I still loved it and was so immersed in it. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I loved that this story was so perfect in the Star Wars universe. It was like a major plot twist, and is the characters from this video game, I think, have survived in the Star Wars fandom in a way that I think it's rare for, original characters outside of the main kind of, TV or movie ecosystem to be able to stand on their own. Revan and they're just like really some of the best Star Wars characters, in my opinion.
I named my cat Revan.
There you go.
Nice. All right. Any thoughts coming off of KOTOR?
I mean, I already kind of weighed in. I'll make this real quick. Like, hearing you say you were in college when you were playing this and it was already old at that point in time, like all of a sudden I was like, oh, I feel old. I played it in 2003 while I was deployed to Iraq. So
I was 2004, right after I graduated high school.
Well, it might have been 2004 because anyways, but yeah, it was like I was in the middle of the sandbox and I'm just like, I'm so old. Oh.
Yeah, I remember like playing through it and just like get it, just the twist in it. And I really like, if you haven't played it, you really should, because that twist still, like, I think is undefeated.
It's peak BioWare.
Yeah, it really is.
BioWare.
I only reason I put Dragon Age Origins above it is because Dragon Age Origins is personal to me, like just that with my story. But yeah, I would say like if you want to play BioWare,
more personal than naming your cat after the main character.
Yeah.
No.
Like Dragon Age Origins was what got me into the games industry. Was when I was like, oh, I'm going to go work in this. So, but yeah,
solid.
KOTOR, 100% love that game.
All right, Biz, any final thoughts before we vote?
Just that I'm sad that apparently the remaster will never happen.
They would have changed things. You wouldn't have
I've heard that it's not dead. I've just, yeah.
My question is, because I am interested in playing this, where can I play it? Is it just on
Xbox?
Steam?
Dude, you can play it on your phone.
Okay, cool. So it's everywhere. Got it.
Yeah. And I think that there's on Steam, they have like a modern resolution fix too for some textures on one of the mods.
It's also on Switch.
Oh, hell yeah. I will probably be getting it on Switch. I didn't know it was on Switch.
That's probably the best place to play it. Nothing ever goes wrong there.
Sound a little jaded, Mark.
I'm sure it's fine. I would hope so. All right. All votes for, if you please raise your hand. That's a 1, 2. Fine, I'll do it. That's a 4. Okay. I was going to abstain. I'm convinced. All right. All those against. That's a 1 from Billie. Billie's not a fan. But that puts KOTOR at a +3 and tucks it in at number 3.
So, Mark, and I know we're not using like official rules or anything, or like, and all rules went out the door.
Yeah.
I would make the recommendation that we take our best 6, because if we go through all 12 games, we're going to be here all night, my guy.
Oh no, We're going until we fill in 12.
Okay. Like I was panicking.
No. The backlog breakdown guy was panicking about the amount of time
It's
spent.
like I am terrible at brevity. Like I'm really good at being bad at it, but like I was getting like panic sweats here. All right.
Yeah, we will probably go into a third round, but the idea, and we'll probably make that a lightning round, but the idea is to go until we have a communal 12. And so not doing our full picks. But I'm up next here. I'm going with maybe a dark horse pick, but I firmly stand behind this. So at their core, I think video games are a series of button presses at the right time that ultimately tell a story. So the story might be something that's deep about the human condition, or it might just be saving the princess, or maybe a smaller story like scoring a goal in a soccer match or running across a field at sunset, maybe on horseback. But it also might just be a story of pointing your finger into a poorly drawn nose, which is why I'm nominating WarioWare Incorporated, the original WarioWare for the Game Boy Advance. I think it takes the simplest concept of what a game can be in gameplay and endlessly riffs on it with a different context in hundreds of ways. And usually that's in a way that surprises and delights, which is the beauty of video games, is it's a surprise and delight that we can participate in and facilitate. So WarioWare, most every game in the series, but especially this first one, delivers that again and again. So WarioWare, I've said this before here, but WarioWare is the quintessence of video games, and it deserves a spot on this list. So that's WarioWare Incorporated, fully mega micro games, I think. Something like that. Typing it in. All right. What are your thoughts? They're speechless.
Something about the naming conventions of these games, man. I can never remember which ones I've played. And I think I've played this one. If it's the one that's on like the Nintendo Switch Online service, then I have played that. I think these games are really fun for like 5 minutes at a time. And they make me laugh and they're enjoyable.
What more do you need?
Yeah.
What's your criticism?
I don't really have a criticism. I just think that, it's not going to hit for me as nearly as hard, I think, as for you, but I don't have anything negative to say about it. It does do exactly what it sets out to do.
It doesn't make me sad. That's my criticism.
I need more tears.
Like just want to make sure that Mark understands what he's doing here. It's like you want to put this on the top 12 most, like, to rule everything. Just making sure you understand. Okay.
That is the prompt I wrote for myself.
Okay.
I know what I'm doing here.
And I really thought you were going to go with something else. Now I wonder if I should have picked it.
We'll get there. All right. Any other thoughts? Well, I've said what I want to say about it. All votes for, if you please raise your hand. Billie rose 2 hands. That means 4 votes. That's me and Billie as 2. All those against, raise your stinking hands. Oh my word. That's 4. Biza, I think you have stepped away from it. I don't know if you give a 4 or against or abstain.
Okay, I should abstain because that was my rule. I haven't played this game. I'll abstain.
So disappointed.
Pain.
This is a dumb idea. Who thought of this? All right. Next up is Billie. You're back again.
Well, this is sad. I'm going to go Mario Kart 8. It is the best of the Mario Kart. It's the best of the racing game franchise stuff, mostly because I hate like real life cars. So this one's enjoyable.
For clarification, do you mean this as deluxe or the Wii U version?
Oh, let's go deluxe with the DLC. You gotta go
Course Pass.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, keep going. Well,
I don't have to defend this. This is just Mario Kart 8.
Best-selling game on Switch. There you go. What more do you need? All right, any thoughts on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?
I am not personally a fan of playing Mario Kart, but I do think it belongs on the list because it is, I think, the quintessence of the racing game, which I think is an important genre of video game. I also think it's like one of the standard games that you would play together if you go over to a friend's house on a Friday night. Standard youth group video game, if you ever did that growing up. So I think a list without Mario Kart would be incomplete.
I'll build off that as well. I think what we're lacking so far is some friendly competition within our list. And so I think it's important to have something like that and something that really brings joy and not sadness. And that's what Nintendo does best, is bring joy. And I feel like Mario Kart is a long-lasting bastion of joy, even when you want to hate each other as you play. And it's just
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this our first Nintendo game on the list?
Super Metroid is on there.
Okay.
So, yeah. Trying to think of anything else. But yes. Second Nintendo game.
Third, WarioWare.
Third, WarioWare.
WarioWare didn't make it.
Yeah, we voted that down.
That's gone.
Yeah, I forgot you guys are party
Killed
pickers.
Yeah, exactly. This guy gets it.
We need to feel sad to feel anything.
Hey, further thoughts on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?
Real quick for the sad boy votes, Blue Shell exists.
Yeah, but
was that a vote for or against?
I don't know.
Well, I gotta make it sad for the sad boys so they can vote for
listen,
it. Oh, gotcha. Yes, of course.
There's a part of me that wants to like give this the nod, and I love Mario Kart, but there's that weird rubber banding that it does that I just can't like. It's like you can be performing on just like you can be having the best race of your life because that game hates you. It's like, no, you don't get to win. And there's something where I'm just like deeply, and while that does make me sad, that doesn't make me sad in a way that's satisfying. It just makes me sad, angry.
Get good.
So I don't know. We'll just see where I go with this one.
All right. Billie, do you have any final arguments for Mario Kart 8?
I do not.
All right, let's get to voting. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That is a 4. All those against. That's a 1. As Nate raising your hand or not? That's a 2. Okay. And that puts Mario Kart 8 on the board at 2. So we have 8 live games so far, and a few other ones that are dead on arrival. Landry, if you would give your second pick here.
My second pick is going to be The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This is, sometimes I call it my favorite game of all time, and sometimes it's Breath of the Wild, and sometimes it's The Last of Us. I don't know, but it is one of those pivotal games for me, like growing up, where I was just like, oh my gosh, video games can do this. I couldn't believe it when I was seeing it for the first time. I never had seen a video game with like that kind of cinematic scope. And I think that's lost on a lot of people who see it for the first time in 2024. There was a verticality to that game that was just completely mind-blowing at the time. Like, and the way that they show that off in the first temple as well, where you're like in this Deku tree, you have to climb to the top and then jump, and the camera follows you as you fall all the way down through like a spider web. That there's just some really cool cinematic moments. And then also I just think the gameplay loop is extremely rewarding and fun. I love exploring in video games. That's my favorite thing to do. And the world is very fun to explore. I think that it can be a little frustrating maybe by modern standards, but it doesn't really bother me at all because I have that game memorized. So it's hard for me to see some of the criticisms that other people see in playing it for the first time. I think if you're playing the 3DS one, it does a pretty good job of like telling you where to go and when to go places. But yeah, I think just, overall experience for when it came out was like a 10 out of 10, and it still hits that same way for me currently.
All right. Any thoughts on Ocarina of Time?
I'm gonna have to just. I don't know. I don't want to be the party pooper here, but I feel like I am. I love Ocarina. I think but it's a game that the longer I've sort of like I'm further removed from it, the more I'm like, it is it absolutely foundational. Yeah. But I don't even think I don't think it's the best 3D Zelda. And frankly, like it like Mario 64 walks so that Ocarina of Time could run, and Ocarina of Time ran so that so many other games could soar. And it's just like it's a game where it's like I have respect to it, like for it. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but I don't think it stands up. And it's like it's a game that I've tried to go back to several times and I just struggle. And but it's also I have just a problem with that era in general in game design. So it's like it's one of those ones where I don't like being a contrarian just to be a contrarian. Contrary to popular opinion, or belief about me. But I do feel like it's like one of those games where it always gets the nod. And that's the one where I'm like, yeah, I just, nah. So
I'm going to agree with Nate completely on this. I think for the time that it came out, and like big, it's great. Founder of like 3D, like things to do, but the game now is just hot garbage. The puzzles is, hey, I'm in a 3D atmosphere. Let me look to the left, talk to the right. There's the puzzle part. The combat is, let me hold down on the shield until I can swing because they're just going to hit me. Boom, boom, shield, hit. There's nothing fun about that. And oh man, it's
for the record,
temple.
I'm not nearly that negative on this.
I hate this game so much now. From someone that loved this game, I can't go back to it. It's outdated, hot garbage.
Wow.
I feel like I'm struggling, having the same struggle with this game as I did with Dark Souls, where I haven't played this, but I want to throw in a vote for a predecessor. And so I'm struggling with knowing, should I vote for this as a way of voting for Breath of the Wild? I know this game is legendary, but I've never played it, so I can't speak to it.
I don't think Ocarina of Time was the Zelda I would have. No, it's not the Zelda I would have gone for. But I think we need a Zelda on the board. I think it still has this really like historic place, and I think I tried playing it for years and like multiple attempts until finally like a few years ago, I went with the mentality of like I need to eat my vegetables and see what this is all about and see it through. And actually, I really enjoyed it myself. Like, I think it was like holds up overall, despite Billie's criticisms. I think actually like it worked really well for me, and I think it's worth going back to. It might be homework, but it's like enjoyable homework. So I think it's also just obviously highly regarded for many reasons, and so I think it should be on this list. Landry, you want to
do a counter argument? Yeah. There's one thing about like old games that I think you kind of have to acknowledge, and that yes, a lot of the mechanics are outdated. That doesn't mean it's poorly designed or that it was poorly designed even in 2024. So, like with Zelda, the mechanics are just a little foreign because nobody's been doing that kind of stuff for a long time. But once you get used to them, kind of like what you were alluding to, Mark, the game is extremely well designed around the mechanics that they're giving you. Yeah, the camera is really hard to control, but they kind of solved that with like an auto camera button that will just go behind Link at all times. Also, that game invented like the modern auto targeting for combat that a lot of games are using currently still to this day. So I mean, there is some archaic design, there's no question. But at the same time, I think overall, if you're looking at the design of the game, it still stands up quite well.
Well, nice. All right, let's get to voting here. All those in favor, if you please raise your hands.
I'm only voting because Zelda needs to be on the board.
Wow. All right, so that's a 5. I kind of read that right. Okay. All those against? None against, and so we had 2 abstentions. And that puts Ocarina of Time at number 2 with a 5 total. All right, we are entering into round 3. I do want to be mindful. We're going to implement some rules back in here. We'll treat this like a lightning round. So if you can give your pitch in about a minute, and then we'll have about a minute or two of discussion, and I'll just chop us off. So let's keep going here. Jordan, what is your third pick?
If I give a live service game, can I choose a certain expansion?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to say vanilla World of Warcraft, or World of Warcraft before the Burning Crusade. And my reasoning is because it is the one of the few games that you can play with ever that you can play with multiple hundreds or thousands of people, where you can walk from one point on one continent all the way to the top of the continent without loading screens. It was done so you could play it on dial-up. It was done so you could have 40-man raids, people all fighting at the same time. It almost created, like, EverQuest probably gets a lot of the credit, but almost created like games as a service now, which I'm not a huge fan of. But the idea of a subscription model did come from that and spawned all the myriad of MMOs coming out and stuff like that. Everyone's been trying to compete with what they provided and have not been successful. I've worked on games that have tried to do that and not been successful. And yeah. And then it re-released itself in 2019, and World of Warcraft had their biggest subscriber bump ever when it re-released in 2019, 15 years after it originally came out.
Solid. Okay. I'm a little conflicted on this. I respect it. Never played it, but I don't know. It makes me nervous. More thoughts from anyone else?
I mean, I think, the thing is, World of Warcraft, I don't play it because I don't need a second job. Playing a video game, I have enough of those in my life as it is. But that, like, you want to talk about longevity. Like, that game has been around for forever and a day. And it is the king. I think Final Fantasy 14 might have edged it out at some point in time, but
but I think it's back now.
But it's like, listen, it's fun. Like, all I'm gonna say is, like, World of Warcraft is a lot of fun. So I'm just like, if Fortnite's gonna be in talks, WoW needs to be there. And I'm not even advocating. I'm not saying play WoW. I'm just saying.
In fact, most people would probably say don't play WoW.
Quick Play does not endorse playing WoW. Do what you want. Any thoughts against this? Or
I agree completely that a MMO RPG needs to be in this. RuneScape was my go-to. I was too poor to deal with WoW growing up, but I played it when I got older, and yeah, it's fantastic.
That's a lot of support here. Jordan, any final thoughts before we move into voting?
I think the last thought I have is that it's one of the few games that you can play where, like, at least vanilla, and I think RuneScape would be, but it's a world. It is a living, breathing world that you are a part of, and that's very, very unique.
Well, fair enough. All right, we will get to voting here. For all those in favor of WoW Vanilla getting in, please raise your hands. That is a 4. For all those against, that is a none for against. That puts 3 abstentions, which puts WoW onto our board. Oops, that was the wrong sorting. There we go. Right at number 3. Would you look at that? Well, let's fix this real quick because it's right after Dark Souls. There we go. All right. Next up, Kurt, what's your third pick for our lightning round here?
All right, I'm going to go with Super Smash Brothers Melee. I think Super Smash Brothers deserves a spot, and I picked Melee because it was a fairly large step up from the original one, but also it had this very interesting, unique, like, grassroots competitive scene. Like, before esports were a thing, like, there were tons of competitions. It wasn't made to be a competitive fighting game, but it turned into one. And I think it's just such an interesting mix of, like, all these kind of accidental mechanics like wave dashing and like all these like tech stuff that you can do that like wasn't intentional, but like it was discovered. And I think it's like as kind of a proto esport, it like really is interesting. And I think as opposed to other games that were like designed to be an esport, it like naturally progressed into one, and it's still like in a small way played today. And I think it's special in that way.
Wrong. Okay. Any thoughts on Melee?
I mean, we brought up like Mario Kart as sort of like the friendly competitive kind of thing, and Smash is that for me. Like Smash is like the game that my buddies and I play together. Like, and we've done all of them. And I think Melee was our longest standing one for the longest time. And if you main Captain Falcon, that's because you're hot garbage. So
I know I'm going to be voting for this because it is a fighting game.
True.
Needs some
yes.
I need that representation in. I don't know if Melee's the best bet. We got Street Fighter and Ultimate and things like that, but we do need representation of fighting games.
That's fair. I think if I knew Smash Bros was coming up, I would not have gone forward with Mario Kart. I think Smash Bros kind of fits that a little bit better, and especially in my life. I think I'm still going forward. I would still vote for it, but I'm a little torn as well. I also want to say too, like, I feel like Smash Bros has always had like a spot in my life, and like different releases have had like different points in my life. And I think Melee was really a formative time, I think, for a lot of people as well. Kurt, go ahead. Oh yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting that you talk about how like Smash has been there throughout like all these different phases. I recently came to the phase where like my nephew beat me in Smash, and I was like, okay, I'm done. So
bad phase. Well, nice. Kurt, any final thoughts on Melee?
No, I agree. I think it's also definitely a good representation of like a party game as well.
Solid. Okay. All those in favor for Super Smash Bros. Melee, please raise your hands. That puts it at a 4. All those against? None are against. That puts it at a 3 abstention and puts it at a positive 4, which is nothing to sneeze at. Next pick here. Nate, you were up once again.
This is so tough for me because the game I'm going to bring forward, okay, is not the game that I kind of want to. I want to bring Dead Space to the table. We have no horror. We have like no modern.
Last of Us on here. What are you talking about?
That's not horror, my friend. And I think Dead Space is like best in class, best in category for that. But there's a game that I think edges that out for me. Just in sort of like really, this is like my last sort of like trying to get something on the board here, and I'm gonna go with Hades, and because like and this is a game that I think has sort of like my artsy fartsy sort of sensibilities. Like it's triple I, it's great music, it's a really like catchy game loop. It's got that sort of like that almost like cozy storytelling kind of thing going on with it. I mean, I love Supergiant, like make no bones about it. I think this is like one of the it's a video gamey game, but it's also got a lot of class, and as far as like narrative heft, it's got a little bit of punch. It's just like is it a 10 out of 10? To me, probably. But I just think it's like one of the best games I've ever played. It is on that list of games that I will go back to and play just again. It's like, and now some of that's because of the nature of the game, but it's also like, it's just, yeah, it's great music, beautiful visual design, just a masterful effort from Supergiant. I mean, and it's just, yeah, it's awesome. So
any thoughts on Hades? I will say for myself that I was always told Hades is the game to play if you don't like roguelikes, and I not really into roguelikes, and I loved Hades. And so I haven't gone back to it since I beat Hades once, and then it was like, oh, there's a lot more to do here. I've not gone back to it, but it's always a thing I've been thinking about. And now Hades 2 is forthcoming.
It's
imminent. So I
It's
don't
in
know.
early access.
It is. I don't really have anything to play it on, but because I am not one of those people with a PC.
Oh, you're not a part of the master race.
No, I'm not.
I think,
but yeah, Kurt.
yeah, I think the dialogue and story is like I also like tend to lose interest in roguelikes, after I beat a few times, I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
there's no point in going back. But like even just the dialogue alone and like getting that little bit of extra conversation, like I kept playing it, and like I rarely do that. And so yeah, it's an amazing game.
Solid. Okay. Nate, any final thoughts on Hades before we get to voting?
It's a great game. I think like if we're talking like sort of like a game, this list, this sort of like the thrust of this list has been really ambiguous. Like, what are we trying to do? It's like these 12
Indeed.
games to rule them all. And it's like, I just think it's like, this is one of those games that you guys are saying like, hey, I don't really like roguelikes. I sort of play them and I bounce out. But it's like, kind of, Kurt, you said it kept bringing you back. And I just think it's like, again, it just like hits every meaningful metric where music, design, narrative, and mechanically, it is like just super tight, super sound. So I'm just like, yeah. Please
Real
put
quick,
this game on the list.
Jordan, you're the expert. Is it roguelike or roguelite?
This is a roguelite.
Light with a
So
T.
roguelikes are no meta progression, usually have turn-based mechanics, stuff like that. The original Rogue style, where it was like you took a turn and then they took a turn, you took a turn, they took a turn, kind of thing. So roguelites have meta progression. They have like saving, that type of thing. Like roguelikes are a lot more punishing.
Gotcha. Okay. Every time I feel like I've got it, then I get it wrong. So, but all those in favor of Hades.
I'll put it on the list.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then all those against. That's a 1 against here, which puts us at a 1 abstention.
I'm crying, Landry.
I love Hades, but it shouldn't be a 5-0. I was gonna vote for it if not a lot of people voted for it, but I would put it probably like in my top 20 Switch games. I don't know about top 12 all time, but I think it's an incredible rogue light or like, I can't remember what you just said, Jordan. But
light T
light. Okay. It's probably my favorite roguelite that I've played, and I actually do kind of like roguelites. So, but Hades is the king of the crop there.
All right, fair enough. Okay. That does fill in our 12. So now at this point, the one on the bubble right now is The Last of Us, could be bumped off, followed by Super Metroid. So Biza, you were up next for our lightning round. Would you give your next pick?
Backyard Football 2002. Just kidding.
I would have absolutely voted that in.
I did put that on my list as my sole sports game representation.
Incredible.
But what I'm really going to go with is let me get the name right. Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga. To me, Lego video games are just like a very important part of video games. I don't know if that one's necessarily the best one, but it is the one that I really first got into as a kid and immersed me in that world. I think it's a fun, cozy type of game that I just want to see represented.
Fair enough. Thoughts on Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga? For myself, I'm a little worried about doing too much Star Wars here. Now that we're like, I would have absolutely voted for this early on. I think now we're at the point where it's like, should this be in above The Last of Us? I am not as sure. I still like the Lego games being just a pillar in video games is really well warranted. But now that we have most of our list here, I'm not sure if I'm willing to move forward with it. Other thoughts as well, or Biza, do you have any final thoughts?
I agree with you completely. I feel like Lego should be represented, and that's why we should have voted for it not.
All right, Biza, any final thoughts before we vote?
No, I mean, I won't be offended if it doesn't make it on there. It's just something I love.
Fair enough. All right. All those in favor? That's one from Biza. All those against? That's a 3, which leaves 3 off the table and puts us at -2. Moving on now is my pick next. And we have a massive gap in our list right now, and I think it needs to be rectified. And that is with Mario. We need a Super Mario World on this. I think Super Mario Brothers, especially in the early
Insert
days.
fart noises.
I knew you would have issues with this, but we're going forward. So, but Mario Brothers, especially in the early days, was foundational for video games as we know it. And this was a foundational video game for my own experience and taste. And I do think that Mario World is the pinnacle of the series. I know that some would argue Mario Brothers 3 is more deserving, and I acknowledge its importance and the excellence in its own right. And it is in a very close second place by a hair. But World, I think, simply does more and does everything it adds in just works. It builds upon everything that came before and nails everything it attempts. Like, I think if both Mario Brothers 3 and Mario Brothers World, Super Mario World are both perfect video games, Mario World just has more perfect about it. That's why I think it's worth considering here. All right, Nate, what are your thoughts?
You're wrong. You have to give the nod to World because it is a masterful game. But I prefer 3 because I think where 3 is just, it's a little simpler, it's a little more elegant, and it does more with less, in my opinion. But that's just me being old and curmudgeon-y. So
maybe we'll get your chance to talk about that more, but who knows? We'll see. Any other thoughts on World as well?
I would say like of the old 2D Marios, like World is definitely my favorite. And
culture.
I didn't grow up with a Nintendo. It was at my grandma's house. So it was like that was what I was playing.
So I feel like at this point, I guess you already have Super Smash Bros. And Mario Kart on here.
Fair.
I feel like 3 Mario games is too many to have on a list of 12.
Super Smash Bros. Is not a Mario game. I mean,
So I think
yeah,
we're picking the 12. Once we get done with this part, we can argue Super Smash Bros. Over other fighting games. We can argue Mario Kart over Need for Speed and things like that.
yes.
But I feel like we need the pinnacle of Mario in there, and we got to have platformer representation. Do we have platformers right now? No,
I don't think so.
I feel
That's
like,
the gap. Yeah, that's a gap that I see here.
so I
Yeah,
feel like it's a great addition because of just being a solid platformer and Mario. We can argue the other games away at a later date.
That's fair.
I
I'll
was
give
about
my
to say Super Mario World, Mark, right before, so I'm glad you
Good
put it on
minds.
the list.
Perfect.
I actually was trying to figure out if I was going to say Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World. I love them both equally. They're 2 of the best games. I play them all the time. But the reason I like Super Mario World, or I think I was going to go with it, is just because it's more fun to 100% complete, because there is like a way to track that.
Mhm.
And I really like completing games, and like there is a big part of me that's like a completionist. So Super Mario World speaks to that part of me.
Very nice. Well said. As my little final thought here, I do feel like it's a comfort food game. An excellent comfort food game. Doesn't mean it's junk food, but it's the one I go to when things are stressful.
I would say, like, dude, like you with any of the 2D Marios specifically, they are masters classes in economy and world design, and just so it may be comfort food, but this is not like cheap cheeseburgers from McDonald's, friend. This is like mom's homemade mac and cheese. This is handcrafted
saying.
perfection.
Absolutely.
So
Well, it sounds like I got your vote, which is great. So we'll move into that right now. For all those in favor,
Before he changes his mind.
go now, go now. Everyone raise your hand. That is a 5, right? Okay. All those against? None vote against, which puts it at a +5. And I got one on the board, which is very exciting for me. That boots The Last of Us off for now. Moving forward here, Billy, what's your final pick here?
I do not think we have a RPG on there, do we?
I mean, do we need one?
KOTOR.
Yes.
We have KOTOR.
Oh, yes, true. Great.
Dark Souls is kind of RPG-ish.
Oh, I mean, like,
You're thinking turn-based, old
turn-based
school.
RPG.
Oh, you're thinking
yeah.
JRPG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn-based
That's
RPG.
fine.
So
I
I'm
also
really
don't
torn
have
between-
a puzzle game or a
shoot.
horse survival game.
We don't have a mobile game.
We don't actually have any proper open world games in here. So
Minecraft.
Minecraft. Yeah.
okay, I'll give the nod there.
I'm gonna go Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Oh, Pokemon is at its pinnacle when it is top down. The ability to have night and day Pokemon follow you. The connections between the other games before and after still. And it's the most comfortable pick I have for an RPG because I feel like if I go Yakuza or something like that, I don't know if it would get all the votes, or Persona 5. That's the 3 that I was going for RPG. And I just feel like Pokemon's comfortable and we can have that discussion later.
All right. Okay. I will throw my thoughts in here. I think Pokemon is an incredible franchise with some of the best character design and creature design in the business. But I think it's ultimately more fun to think about playing Pokemon than it actually is to play Pokemon. I think as a game, it's really limited. You get that dopamine hit whenever you get a new Pokemon, but it's just, I don't know. Like I don't like turn-based combat. I've been upfront about that. I am not into it. I want more for Pokemon. And every time that I try to go into one, I'm like, this is fine. That's my thoughts.
I mean, I have gone on record as saying like Pokemon is baby's first RPG. So it's I respect it, but you would have got me if you had thrown in like an old school Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger. You would have got my vote, but I think I might have to vote against this.
Look, I just say vote for it now so we can have the discussion later for turn-based RPG.
Bribing.
Oh boy. Okay.
I want to vote for it, but I like Super Metroid.
No, it's true. That's on the bubble now.
Yeah.
All right, Billy, any
You could
closing
have backed
thoughts?
me. You guys could have backed me with Hollow Knight. That's all I'm saying.
This is the bed we made. We must now lay in it.
This is how American politics works.
Shoot. Go back to the list real quick for me, Mark.
Yeah.
That's gonna help me determine if I need how to try to sell this. Hear me out. Super Metroid Manias are great, but we now have Mario on there. Metroid's kind of a platformer, so let's get that turn-based RPGs on the list, guys. We'll have the discussion later about which one's actually better. I just threw Heart Gold and Soul Silver out there.
Okay. Here we go. All right, all those in 4, if you please raise your hand. That's 1 from Billy. All those against? That's 2 against. Most everyone else is staying out of this. That puts Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver at a -1. And off our board. It's gone. All right, Landry, why don't you finish us up for this session here?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with RPG, but I'm gonna go Western RPG, even though I'm a big JRPG fan. But Skyrim is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's one of those games that, like, really, there's probably only 3 games that I've ever played that have given me the kind of like feeling of just exploration like go anywhere, do anything that Skyrim has done. And that would be like Breath of the Wild and Xenoblade Chronicles X, interestingly enough. But the thing about Skyrim is like I grew up as a really like big high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings nerd. And Skyrim just kind of scratches that itch for me. I mean, it's got dragons and uh, knights and that very like oh, what am I trying to say? Old English vibe to everything. So it's just right up my alley. And I think it has stood the test of time. I've replayed it a couple of times, not in the past 5 years, but it's just a fun, very chill game. It's cozy for me. I don't know that it's definitely not in the cozy genre, but it's comfort food for me.
It's fair. Any thoughts on Skyrim?
I used to like Skyrim, but then I took an arrow to the knee.
So I know this is just going to sound evil, but I really hate Super Metroid. So I'm voting for it to get it off.
Oh man. My worry is that I feel like Red Dead Redemption 2 kind of fits this big open world Western RPG mold already. And
Oh man, no, they have like almost zero in common. Except for that they take place in a world.
I mean, I don't know. All right, Landry.
I would say it would more be fighting for like the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic
that's fair.
spot,
Yeah.
personally.
Okay. That's
which I'm not a space opera guy. Okay. I like the Star Wars movies just fine. I love the old trilogy, but it's just, I never really played any of the Star Wars video games.
Fair enough. Landry, you want to make any final thoughts before we vote?
I saw that you could play it on a fridge once. That was pretty cool.
I just love the fact that like people are like, stop publishing Skyrim, and Todd Howard's like, stop buying it. And like that sort of like absolutely savage takedown. You got to kind of respect that, where it's just like, stop buying it.
All right. Votes for Skyrim, if you would please raise your hand. That's a 1, 2, 3. Votes against. That's a 1. Skyrim's making our list. Look at that.
And down goes Super Metroid.
Bummer. Okay. So that puts our list now currently at, let's see. Number 1, Minecraft, then Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Super Mario World, Dark Souls, World of Warcraft Vanilla version, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Hades, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Doom, Red Dead Redemption 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. But wait, there's more. We have our aggregated lists. We'll see what happens here. How many of these will show up? So with our full lists all mashed together, we had 3 instances of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and 3 instances of Elden Ring. But so both go on at a +3, which puts us at, now our list is Minecraft, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Super Mario World, Dark Souls, World of Warcraft Vanilla, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Hades, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, no changes there so far. And then Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild comes at number 9. Elden Ring comes in at number 10, and then Doom and Red Dead Redemption 2 both line up here at the end. So now is when things will also get interesting. I want to do a quick readjustment. I set all these complex rules. How about we'll go around twice. We'll each suggest an edit. And so that can be a counter offer, that can be want to revote, that can be anything you think should be. This is more our time to just fix anything we want to fix. Edits will require a 2/3 vote, unless we're just doing a revote, and we'll kind of make up the rules as we go. So let's say for an edit to go through, we have 7 people here. So that we'd 5 or more. So 5 or more votes in favor of making the change, and then we'll just do simply pitch. So we'll go in our same order, suggest an edit, we'll go around twice, and so you have a minute to suggest what you want to do. Need time to Jordan, you're up first. Do you want to take a quick time to think here?
So I'm trying to suggest something to go into one of these spots, or I'm trying to suggest like am I trying to swap one out?
Just simply of like anything. Honestly, it's kind of open. Anything you can think of, like I want to swap one out. I want to suggest that instead of Breath of the Wild, we should consider Tears of the Kingdom. I want to simply just do a revote on any of these games, and that will re-put it where it's at.
I love how, like, after 4 years of pain in sort of Josh and I editing the top 100 list, I'm just watching somebody else squirm under the weight of all of this. I'm just saying.
Now we have to, the thing is, it's all our fault. So you're part of this too. I've got to I have to sign my name under this. But I brought you all into this, so I'm taking you down with me. All right, Jordan.
So if I had to suggest an edit, the first thing I would do is look at the 2 Legend of Zeldas that we have and say, I know Ocarina of Time was influential for its time, but we do now have 2 Zeldas on there that are both the like Ocarina is kind of open world a little bit, and so I would suggest that we take a look at those 2 and maybe think about knocking one out. And if I have to suggest something to go in there, I'll suggest another open world game. One of my favorite indie games of all time, that's Outer Wilds. And I would probably put it up against Ocarina of Time.
Okay. So the edit suggested is replacing Ocarina of Time with Outer Wilds.
No, and the problem is like I would probably want to put like Breath of the Wild up to Ocarina of Time. The problem is like I don't want to knock Breath of the Wild off and replace it with Outer Wilds, but it would be like swap, and then if I have to add something, I would suggest Outer Wilds. But I would just suggest swapping if that's.
I see. Well,
can we do both real quick? Can we just take a vote, see if we can swap Breath of the Wild for Ocarina of Time?
Oh, I think there's something to be said. The fact that there's 2 Legend of Zelda games on there.
Yes.
And so we need to address that.
Here's the thing.
We also have the problem with Dark Souls and Elden Ring both being on there.
Right. Yeah.
So Jordan, say you just sub out Outer Wilds at the number 2 slot. Like whenever it's my turn, I could swap Breath of the Wild for Outer Wilds with my turn.
You have to get the votes. See, that's the thing.
That's
Any
right.
amendments have to get a 5 vote.
Right.
Like,
And I don't think Outer Wilds will get a 5 vote against an Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing is if you want to make the edit be like, let's swap these 2 and replace Ocarina of Time with Outer Wilds, that makes it harder to get all the votes for that. But if that's the edit you want to suggest, I think let's try it. But also, if you'd rather go with something smaller to kind of more ensure a change, that's up to you. Like, essentially, here's what I'm like, you're making this pitch of here's what I'm suggesting. Let's swap out. Well, you were suggesting this at one point. You may no longer be suggesting it, but like, let's swap the 2 Zeldas and then replace Ocarina of Time with Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds goes in at number 9, while Breath of the Wild then takes number 2. So that's a lot to bargain for.
Yes.
But I think you could suggest that be the edit. But that's versus of let's just swap the 2 Zeldas, and is that more likely to pass?
But my problem is I don't necessarily think that Breath of the Wild deserves the second slot either.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like all over the place with this. So
yes.
Let me break the rules and let me just go over above everybody on the list.
Maybe would it be helpful to first have a vote? Do people feel like we should only have representation from one Zelda and one Dark Souls game? Is that like commonly agreed upon?
Yes.
Yes.
So maybe we should just do a vote, Dark Souls versus Elden Ring, a vote, Ocarina of Time versus Breath of the Wild.
Jordan, do you want to
Okay.
use your
That's
turn?
entirely too reasonable, and I like it.
Yeah, I'll be happy to use my turn for that.
Okay. So the way it's set up is, are we voting of which Zelda to keep and which Souls like to keep, or
Yeah.
Souls-ish?
So
And
it's
we'll just put that title at the top, whichever genre. Like say Breath of the Wild wins, it would move to number 2, and if Elden Ring wins, it would move to number 4.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that makes the
that's
most
fair.
sense.
And then if people want to move that around, that can be a later vote.
Okay.
Cool.
And so for logistics, we're going to say the one that loses will get zeroed out at votes. Okay. Starting with, this is great podcasting. We're figuring stuff out as we go. We're breaking all the rules. It's great. This is meant to be what it is. All right. For those that want to keep Ocarina of Time, would you please raise your hand? Over Breath of the Wild. For those that want to keep Breath of the Wild over Ocarina of Time, please raise your hand. That is over 5. Nate abstains. So Ocarina of Time will be zeroed out. And then for those that want to keep Dark Souls, please raise your hand. That is the majority. So Dark Souls stays as well. Elden Ring gets the boot. All right. Let's reset our list. That puts Mario Kart 8 Deluxe back on the board, and Elder Scrolls V Skyrim also back on the board. All right. Next up, Kurt, what is an edit you'd like to see?
Question, do they have to be swaps or can they be recommendations of similar games like that haven't been talked about yet?
It can be that too. That's a counteroffer.
I think so. Actually, I haven't played this yet, but I think Baldur's Gate 3 is worth considering in one of the maybe RPG slots. I would say, as I haven't played them, so like Knights of the Old Republic or Red Dead Redemption, maybe like kind of they're not super similar, but I feel like it's worth considering. So,
okay. Do you have, I think for simplicity, do you have one you want to swap it out and it'll swap out at its place?
let's do 10. Swap.
So the vote is for swapping Red Dead Redemption 2 with Baldur's Gate 3. This will require 2/3 majority, so 5 or more. All of those. Anything more you want to say on that before we vote? Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's enough like Western RPGs now, like with Coder and Red Dead Redemption and now Skyrim. And I feel like there's good representation. And personally, I like Skyrim more. So I'm kind of picking.
Fair enough. All right. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It does not pass. Red Dead Redemption 2 remains as it is, but a good attempt.
I would have done it for KOTOR, but or KOTOR, however you guys are saying that, but not for Red Dead. Red Dead's not an RPG, guys. It's like
it's an experience.
I don't feel like
it's an open world sim type game.
Yeah.
Like it's a cowboy simulator. So
So
all right,
close.
Nate. This is your edit now. What do you want to pitch?
So I did mention, I think there are 2 specific genres that we're kind of absolutely lacking in. One is any sort of like puzzle representation, which I would put forward as like Tetris Effect is probably like the fact that Tetris isn't on this list at all.
Yes.
Is I think much to our shame. But Tetris Effect is probably the pinnacle of Tetris. Or like I said, Dead Space, I think, is arguably one of the greatest survival horror games of all time, with excellent sound design, excellent atmosphere design. I'm kind of tough. Like what I think I'd like to see is that as much as I want Doom to stay on the list, it kind of does hit that sort of like horror adjacent vibe. And so I'm just gonna take a shot and just say I'd like to see Dead Space or even something comparable. Like I'd be willing to settle for like Resident Evil 4, but something in sort of like the horror genre, which tends to be a lot more niche. I get, but it's if we want representation here, I think it needs to be on here somewhere. So
Okay.
I would just the simple motion is swap out Doom for Dead Space. So
I would vote for Resident Evil 4 way
I would
ahead
too.
of time.
I would do Resident Evil 4. I can't do
Resident Evil
Space.
4 is
I
a
like Dead
staple.
Space a great deal, but
I'll amend that then to Resident Evil 4, even though
So
it's
Doom instead of or Resident,
Resident
instead of
Evil
Doom,
4 instead of Doom.
or not instead of Skyrim or Mario Kart.
I mean, I'm gonna gun for Skyrim later. So
I'll
right.
say I think shooters need more representation than survival, or like in terms of covering.
I mean, well, I'll just change it then straight up right now. Like Resident Evil 4 for Elder Scrolls. Like I just think like, yeah, we need to like. I'm seeing essentially, Breath of the Wild is essentially kind of an open world
Mhm.
game. Minecraft is open world adjacent. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, yeah, not so much. But then Red Dead and Elder Scrolls, those are all very large maps. And I'm just saying, like, any one of those, I think we could take a pop off and just sort of like, so Resident Evil
well-
4 for Elder Scrolls, though.
Let's keep cooking because I got to pee. So all those in favor of replacing Skyrim with Resident Evil 4, would you please raise your hand? All right. I tried to throw a bone there and it did not pass. Elder Scrolls remains.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Biza, what is your edit?
So I think, to me, there are too many Marios on here, in my opinion, and I liked Nate's idea of having some kind of Tetris on there. I don't really have a strong, I don't know if I've even played Tetris Effect versus Tetris, but I'm going to go out on a limb and just say Tetris Effect over Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
All right. This will require 2/3. For those in favor of replacing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with Tetris Effect, raise your hands. The motion passes. Almost,
right.
except for Landry.
And I think I'm going to have to peace out,
Okay.
get to bed. So
Thank you for
can't
being
wait
here.
to see the final list. But good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night, Biza. Thank you for joining. Next up on our list here is me. Okay, now we have Tetris Effect in there. Man, I don't know if I have anything to change. I want a gun for Elder Scrolls. Trying to think of what I want to replace it with. Here's the thing. I just want to do a quick little easy swap. I want to put Super Metroid back on and just bump it back up, Elder Scrolls back down. That's what I want to do. So all those in favor of replacing Skyrim with Super Metroid. Now need. All right, it passes. And that will get swapped around.
2/3 is now 4, by the way. And so
Yes, that's true. All right, next up on our list here is Billy. What is your edit?
I'm still on the JRPG train, so I want to try to swap out Star Wars Knight of the Republic for Chrono Trigger.
Oh. Okay.
yes.
Those in
yes,
favor
100% yes.
of replacing Knights of the Republic with Chrono Trigger, raise your hands. It
Cowards.
does not pass.
Cowards.
Cowards.
All right, Landry, what is your edit?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like everything I'm going to try and do is not going to work. I want The Last of Us on the list so bad. I was going to do The Last of Us for Elder Scrolls, but you stole my move, Mark. So here's
Do it
what
for Super Metroid.
well,
That's true. You could try.
I may do that. Yeah.
Okay.
But first, what I want to address here is I just want to bring this to the table. I don't think Minecraft's the best game of all time. I do think it belongs on this list, and I think it belongs near the top of the list. I would like to switch it out with something, though. And I think I would like to switch it out with Super Mario World.
Okay.
We'll move it down one spot. Minecraft being the number one game of all time just doesn't sit well with me for some reason.
All right.
Hey, I'll let you move it down to 3.
Well, I didn't think the Breath of the Wild would make it, so I'm trying to get something that will pass.
I think it should.
I'm just giving you some moral support.
Thanks.
All right, all those in favor of just swapping the places of Minecraft and Mario World? We have 4, and that will happen. Bam, there you go. Okay. Final round of edits. Jordan, it's back to you. Anything you'd like to see changed?
I do agree that we should get a JRPG in, and I think that I was thinking Final Fantasy VII or Chrono Trigger, but I'm not exactly sure who to go after. I just don't think that Knights of the Republic is a good one to knock off of.
Chrono Trigger is going to get my vote. Final Fantasy VII might not. I'm just like, like
I'm not a Final Fantasy VII
I agree with
fan
them.
per se.
I'm just not sure like which one. I want to knock off Super Metroid, not because it was Mark's, but just So I would suggest Chrono Trigger for Super Metroid.
So that's tough.
Okay, all those in favor?
That's really.
Can you give us a second?
I actually have to think about that.
Yeah, I need to sit on this for a couple
I'm
minutes.
pretty sure that's like my 3rd and 4th favorite Super Nintendo game, depending on the day. They'll just go back and forth with each other. Oh man!
Remember,
tough.
it could come back. It's not out forever.
That's true, but
the hard part about this is that like their games, and again, this is something that like I have sort of been running up against for years as Josh and I have cultivated our list, but there are games on here that I'm like, I just don't want that in there. And so there's
I think
something.
It's very representative of like multiple different types of gamers, and I think that's what's cool about this list, because like I'm not a World of Warcraft guy, and I probably never will be. I'm not a Minecraft guy, but I can respect that they're on this list.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and again, I think Elizabeth so rightly sort of nailed it, is that like there is a broad spectrum of agendas sort of informing this list, and it's just it's one of those things where it's
I knew that going in. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do you feel like we can come to a consensus here?
Yeah, or at least I can vote.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for the vote, I guess.
Actually, let's drop it in for Hades. I'm going to put Chrono Trigger against Hades.
Oh,
I will vote yes for that.
Okay.
You guys are disgusting. I'm just saying that. Like, my vote is gone now. So,
all in favor?
Hear me out.
All right. Is this the final answer? I know there's hands going up already. Yeah. Okay. Those in favor of replacing Hades with Chrono Trigger. It's a tie and does not pass.
Okay.
Good effort. I wouldn't have voted for Chrono Trigger on Metroid anyway, Jordan. So that was a good choice.
Valiant effort. Kurt,
did Chrono Trigger already took a shot at KOTOR, didn't it?
Yeah, Chrono Trigger already did take a shot at KOTOR.
Yeah. That's just, I was like, that's the one.
But I may just try it again for fun.
All right, Kurt. Next up, what is your edit?
Mostly for the memes, since we need a third craft game, StarCraft Brood War replacing Tetris. Or if there's
my wounds are deep.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll do that.
What is this game?
I don't even know what you just
StarCraft.
said.
StarCraft.
StarCraft.
Oh.
This is the original
subtitle.
StarCraft?
StarCraft
Brood,
1, yeah.
yeah, Brood
Okay.
War. Yeah, it's an expansion, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
Right
Those
on.
in favor of replacing Tetris Effect with StarCraft.
I love the idea. I've never played StarCraft, man, so I can't do it. I don't like Tetris personally. It
What?
bores me.
I'm mostly just I always talk about StarCraft, so I had to.
You had to do it.
Dude,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mad
it doesn't
respect
pass
to
for those
that.
listening.
Like StarCraft is legendary. Hundreds of hours of my youth probably into that game. So
Yeah, I think if we had had another round, I would have talked about it a lot. But
Oh, fair. All right, Nate, what is your final edit?
oh man, here, let me look at my list.
I hate Star Wars, so I want to get Resident Evil 4 on there instead of that.
What did I run Resi against last time?
man.
Super Metro, I think.
Skyrim, I thought.
Oh, it was against
was
Skyrim.
Skyrim.
I do feel like we need, and Resident Evil is like probably I don't want to say mainstream, but it's like the safer pick. Like Dead Space is like my personal favorite when it comes to survival horror. Like the Ishimura is just such a cool environment, but it is very heavy. Whereas like Resi 4 is arcadey and just goofy enough. Yeah, we'll go with.
No, you did it for Doom last time. That's what you did.
Oh, that's what I did. Yeah, I was like thinking some parody. Yeah, I'll take Resi 4 at let's shoot my shot. Resi 4 bumping Star Wars KOTOR.
Okay. So this is replacing Star Wars KOTOR with Resident Evil 4. All those in favor? And, it passes at the last minute.
second.
Oh, my
Incredible.
word. Kurt comes through for the team.
I mean, I don't want to see
but whatever.
KOTOR get bumped off the list, but I just do feel like
No, that's fair. Yeah.
it's tight. It's tight, and it's like you got to like pick your fights.
I definitely wanted to see that, so thank you.
Harsh stuff. Okay. With Elizabeth now gone, it then comes to me. Ooh, okay. I don't feel so strongly about this. Here's the thing. Okay. No, I don't know. I have a game I want to pitch, but I'm not sure where to try to slide it in. I'm gonna take a very hard pivot from Doom. I'm gonna suggest that we replace it with I don't know. Oh man, I don't know.
Doom 2016.
No,
That
it's
game is amazing.
okay. Here's what I'm thinking is I want to pitch Journey as like a indie representative, as like a narrative representative. I don't know if I can slide it in anywhere. I have like the least amount of love for Dark Souls, World of Warcraft. I don't think it should necessarily replace those. Okay. I concede. I pass. I can't decide what to do. So, Billy, what is your final edit?
All right, listen, you horse jockeys. I Chrono Trigger against Red Dead Redemption 2.
All right.
You guys
Hey,
have
more
been
thoughts on
artsy
it?
fartsy this entire episode, and let me tell you right now, if you're actually artsy fartsy, you'll listen to me.
You will listen to me.
I mean,
I'm voting for that.
I'll vote for that. Like that's yeah.
All right. Up for grabs is replacing Red Dead Redemption 2 with Chrono Trigger.
Can't do it. I'm sorry.
It ties. It does not pass.
You take your horse and you ride it out of
I
here.
will into the sunset.
Dude, I
while some
mean,
beautiful music plays.
it's so tough. Like
That is really tough.
Chrono Trigger. So my top 3 are Shadow, Chrono Trigger, and Super Mario Brothers 3. Like, and I'll let things sit with Super Mario World, even though it is inferior. But like Chrono Trigger not being on this list like hurts me physically. Like I'm gonna have to cry for a little bit later.
Tricky
I
stuff.
unfortunately have to bow out, Mark.
Okay.
But
Jordan, thank you
thank
for
you all.
being here.
Had a great time.
Dude, it was good seeing you again, Jordan.
Yeah.
We need to catch up sometime, man.
I would love that. Yeah. Talk to
Wonderful.
you later.
Thanks for being here. Okay. Landry, why don't you close us out? Do you have a final edit?
I feel like it's not fair now because we're dropping the numbers.
Yeah.
No, this is fair. This is when we make all the edits.
Yeah. You can just pitch your own list and we'll vote on it.
An endurance race. And with the others, they didn't
Swap of
understand that
everything.
this is an endurance race.
Yeah, for real.
It'll still be
okay.
4 votes to pass.
Earlier I said I don't like Tetris. That's not true. I grew up with Tetris and I have a completed box copy on the NES. It's a great game, but I think Chrono Trigger is a better game. So I'm going to put Chrono Trigger up against Tetris Effect.
Oh, that's the easiest one you could get, I think.
All right, all those in favor of placing Tetris Effect with Chrono Trigger. You know what? Oh man, I can't not do Tetris.
Yeah, that's the thing.
do it. I can't do it.
I mean, I'm the one who put Tetris on the list, like who pushed for it, but I'm like, yeah, it's tough. This like, dude, Mark, I'm so thrilled that like you are sort of experiencing some of the angst.
The weight of all of this. Oh man, it's awful.
Akira Toriyama just died. So, you got to do it.
I have to do
That
it.
is
That's
so
You could have
manipulative.
you could have done it for Red Dead.
No.
What in the world?
Oh man, that is so I love it, but man, wow.
Oh.
Sorry. Rest in peace.
Well, rest in peace to this podcast. Also, it was vote 3-2, so it did not pass. So our final list here: number 1, Super Mario World; number 2, Minecraft; number 3, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild; number 4, Dark Souls; number 5, World of Warcraft, the vanilla version; number 6, Super Smash Bros. Melee; number 7 is Hades; number 8 is Resident Evil 4; number 9 is Doom; number 10 is Red Dead Redemption 2; number 11 is Tetris Effect; number 12 is Super Metroid. As much as I am unsure about everything, it's a solid list. They're all good
Solid
video
list.
games. We don't.
I
all
feel like we
bangers.
could have knocked Smash out though somehow.
I don't know.
Like
Smash
Smash.
Smash is special.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's tough, but like Josh and I I keep referencing that, but every year when Josh and I edit this, like
Well, fair, like this, that did help inspire this a lot too. So go ahead and tell us about it.
yeah, like our top 100 is like the top 10, like the top 25. It gets like absolutely cutthroat, and there's stuff that I'll just like I know shouldn't be on there, and like if Josh hears this, he probably knows that, but I'm like I'm not ceding any more ground. Like I've already given you enough. So
You took down Stardew Valley. I took down Shadow of the Colossus. Here we are.
yeah. But it's such an interesting sort of like thought experiment, because and again, it comes back to like I think like Smash Brothers, yeah, it's like ultimately, do I think is that like in top 10 greatest games of all time? No. But it does sort of like hit this like interesting sort of like cross-pollination where it hits like 5 or 6 different categories actually pretty nicely. So it's a party game, but it's
the
also
best party game ever made.
yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, but it's also actually a really competent fighter. Is it like top shelf like fighter? No. So it's like you've got 2 slots right there that are kind of covered, like party game, fighter. And like the reality is like anytime you engage in an exercise where you're trying to like sort of like pare things down and embrace restrictions, like things get really precious really quick.
Yes.
And it's
just that might make my own list for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I mean, sort of referencing Shadow of the Colossus. One of the things that I love about that game, and again, it's that design by deletion. It's like they just kept taking things out and taking things out and taking things out. And what's left is this really sort of like clean, like hard thing that I think is beautiful. And I sort of see the same thing in this list where it is something greater than the parts, where it's like, you had 7 people coming in here and just like making just wild pitches. and
Yeah.
you get this list that is fairly comprehensive. It's not, is it perfect? No, by no stretch of the imagination, but it's interesting. And I think it hits a fairly nice cross section of most gaming. I mean, so it's just interesting, and it's hard. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize how hard something like this is until they're doing it.
Yes.
And it's like the reality is we could probably be doing this for another couple hours and still like it so yeah.
Like there will never be a perfect list that will even just 7 people will all agree on. So
yeah,
or even the 5 we have now. So
dude, it's me and my co-host, and we have a top 100. It's 2 guys, and there's stuff that we like bicker about in that thing all the time, so it's like, it's an absolutely fascinating exercise. I'm so glad you embraced this madness. So
man. Well, indeed we did. Well, thank you all. It's time to go to bed, but thank you all for joining me. This also kind of counts as the podcast's second birthday, so thanks for celebrating this little anniversary.
Happy birthday, Quick Play. The podcast formerly known as 11 and a half minutes to talk about video games.
Rest in peace. Well, do a quick where else you're out on the internet, starting from the top of the screen now. Billie, where else are you at? You are muted. There we go.
Oh, sorry. You can find me on X as Nolus Guy, but don't worry, I'll find you and my Discord.
Absolutely. Nate, how about you? Where else are you at?
I mean, if you like pain and abuse, you can find me on the interwebs. Actually, I'm not really on social media anymore. If you are interested in seeing like my feed, like I'm kind of present at Nate_McKeever on most of the socials. You can find me over on the Breakdown and our various social kind of like stuff there, and the Breakdown's Discord. But social media in general, I mean, we're just kind of like, it's not me, it's you. But if
you like podcasts that are usually as long as this one, go check out the Backlog Breakdown. So and Landry, how about you? Where else are you at?
Yeah, you can I'm a co-host on Bitcast. You can find that on podcast services. I'm on X at Soft Iconoclast.
Very nice. And Kurt, how about you? Where are you at?
I guess not really anything. I might show up here again.
Yeah, we love that. Absolutely.
Well, now that I've met you, Kurt, I might tap you. So be careful.
Big StarCraft fan.
Yeah, sounds good.
There you go. Well, also I'll shout out Jordan and Elizabeth. I'll have their details down below in the description, so check them out as well. Jordan is making a video game, so you can follow his progress. Worth checking out. Well, thank you all for listening in. You can follow us on the major podcasting services. You can find us on the proper socials at Quick Play Pod, and let us know, what are your 12 games to rule them all? Did we totally botch this, or do we get it even close to right? But that's all. Oh, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks. Bye. Oh, hey, feature Mark again here. For one, if you made it this far, well, thanks for listening. That was an endeavor, and it was a ton of fun to record, so thanks for taking it all in. But after session 1, when I was adding in the communal picks from our full list, floundered for a bit while I was figuring out how to get that data, and that evolved into an interesting conversation on the lack of sport games on the list, so I took it and stuck it here at the end as a little bonus treat. So enjoy. Thanks again. We do some quick formatting here to make this work. Oops, that's not the right button. This makes great for great podcasting. Come on now. That's a lot. Oh, that didn't work. Please hold 1 second while I figure this out.
Do you guys ever watch the XL like World Championships or whatever it is?
I don't know what.
Is that what we're watching now?
I need to do that.
It's that and the forklift driving like championships. I'm just a sucker for this type of things.
Well,
one thing I want to just mention is that we didn't mention any sports games, which feels like a bit of an omission. Not that I like sports games. I hate them. But
yeah, I don't know what it is about me. I play a lot of sports games, and I always have, and I never mention them on these types of lists. So maybe I'm being too pretentious. But like NBA Jam That's one of the best.
I think it's the fact that most sports games, if we're being honest, like there's actually a really strong correlation between like turn-based RPGs and a lot of the Madden games. It's like you pick the play and then, the stats sort of like the dice roll and you see whether your attack succeeds or not. But yeah, you have to like sports. And if you don't, then it's like, So
have you ever played Blood Bowl or seen Blood Bowl played?
No, is it like NFL Blitz? But
no, it's kind of football in the Warhammer 40K with Warhammer 40K rules.
Oh, interesting.
And there's a computerized version of it, and it's just so much fun. It's like the whole point of it is to mitigate as much randomness as possible, because like your guys can just fumble trying to pick up the ball because they have no dexterity or something like that. Like just a bunch of orcs, and they just like kick the ball and then give it to the other team. So it's like a whole bunch of like mitigating risk, and it's a lot of fun.
That sounds fun.
All right. Go ahead, Biza.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm now processing that I think sports games are not evergreen because they're usually tied to specific players in a specific season. And so they're fun.
Probably has a lot to do with it, yeah.
A year, and then you move on to the next one and you don't revisit the old one. I figured it out.